It's picked up. Fafita scrambling, throws deep, end zone, caught, touchdown, Kian Burnett.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Wins it, keeps it, following Sumo Karnbay, and the ball comes out into the end zone. It is recovered for a touchdown by Josh Kess.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Edge pressure. Ward ducks away. Spencer had him. Ward flips it to Williams. How do you like this? From the sideline. Push down inside the 5.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Long throw caught in Arkansas territory and a broken tackle. Noah Thomas down the sideline, into the end zone. Touchdown, Texas A&M.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
And they take a downfield shot. And the catch is made. It's Ryan Williams. Still spinning free. Touchdown, Alabama. They answer in one play. 75 yards for the 17-year-old. Are you kidding us?
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
There is news today on realignment. It involves the Mountain West Conference, but there's also news today involving a team being added to the Pac-12 when it comes to basketball. Good afternoon, 365 Sports. Every weekday between 3 and 6, an hour after Paul finishes up triple option from 1 until 2. We have Garrett Ross, Jack McKenzie, Emery Winter in the studio, and Craig Smoak to my right, Paul Catalina to my left. And we are loaded up with guests today, plus we have our Bob Bowlesby pod. I did it this time. I named it right. We'll hear from the voice of UTEP Athletics because of this story from earlier today. They are joining the Mountain West Conference. They are joining the Mountain West Conference effective July 1st of 2026. They'll play games starting that academic year of 26-27. We are honored to be invited to the Mountain West Conference. They're UT El Paso Vice President, Director of Athletics, Jim Center. We'll hear from the voice again of UTEP Athletics in just a moment, John Teicher. So this one at least is done.
Yeah, and good for UTEP being in the Mountain West. If this is what is best for them and competitively helps them get better, then great. I'm still confused on outside of what the TV dollars are going to be, which I guess we don't know yet. I guess they assume they're going to be better than they are in Conference USA. Why this is all better than just merging or figuring out a way to get together. But, I'm not in charge of either conference, and I remain confused as to how this is going to get them into the playoff better or do anything but set them up better. I don't know
about the playoff, but I do think that Mountain West Conference has a lot of cap room, so to speak, like you would think when it comes to signing NFL free agents.
Yeah, it also just makes more sense regionally to have some of the teams out west there that they'll be playing. I mean, because I don't think people understand how far west El Paso is. I could get to Florida quicker than I could get to El Paso. Maybe not quite that, but it's pretty close. It's not that far off. And we're right here in the middle of Texas. There's a whole big old area to get through before you get to El Paso. So they're more west than anything, and I think that's part of it. But luckily, we've got somebody who will be able to fill us in on that. I'd imagine, there's more to it than just the regionality, but that's a big deal for the Mountain West. I know this is not the most interesting round of realignment for a lot of people because it doesn't feature a lot of big brands, but it is sort of the lower, just right under the P5, kind of situating itself and how it's going to look moving forward, and the balance of teams and whatever power there is out there to be grasped, I do think is interesting as you start to look ahead in years down the line. But this is obviously a move that both sides wanted. And so now you got UTEP joining Air Force and Hawaii and Nevada and New Mexico State and Wyoming and UNLV and so on. And so, yeah, that'll be an interesting conference and good for the Miners fans who seem to be excited about this. And for those that aren't, I don't know. We'll get more details on why this is a great move for UTEP. But, yeah, it's a lot of Texas activity, it seems like, right now, as you're hearing the rumors about Tarleton and them being contacted by the Mountain West. That's where I'm like, really like, okay, guys, like, I know you want Texas, but with all due respect, like, we're starting to really scrape when we're getting to Tarleton. And I know there are people on the show, respect the hell out of them, but you're not moving the Texas needle per se with that, nor would you with UTEP necessarily, but I do think El Paso is a huge city. I know a lot of people who love El Paso as a travel spot, and so, good for the Miners.
Well, here's the thing. You mentioned it's as close to get to El Paso as Florida. El Paso is approximately 9 hours and 1 minute away from where we are right here. Panama City is like 12 hours, and that's like the furthest west city. But Mobile, Alabama, which is right there on the Alabama-Florida, basically the whatever you call it, divide, is 9 hours and 2 minutes. So it's about the same to get one way or the other. UTEP, again, with the decision, they are joining the Mountain West, and so we'll hear from their voice of UTEP athletics in just a moment. Meanwhile, Craig brought up Tarleton State. Ross Dellinger today saying that they are in serious discussions with Tarleton. Remember, we've had their president, the AD, and football coach on, and they have been wanting to make the move. They finally got through the transition. And they are ready to go, and now you have this. And I'm not sure where this goes. I reached out to Steve Urias, but did not hear back. I saw where Matt Brown actually tweeted out that right now, the conference that Tarleton State is in, they're having like athletic director meetings. So that's kind of an interesting note there, as they are, the WAC ADs are right now meeting, and Tarleton, of course, a part of that. And then this one. Gonzaga. The Big 12 had interest. They've always looked at UConn too, but Gonzaga, they're going to the Pac-12. Who said this a few weeks ago?
Brett McMurphy.
He's going to join us today at 4. Brett McMurphy, Action Network HQ, as they join the Pac-12. You saw the logo. Y'all ready for this? Back the Pac, and that's Gonzaga, the Bulldogs, and their tremendous men's basketball program.
Yeah, I mean, that's great to have some finality. I'm sure if you're a Gonzaga fan, after the past year of a roller coaster of rumors twice over, I think dalliances with the Big 12, talks about joining that league. I'm not sure how far those ever got along, but we know that they at least kicked the tires on that, and from both sides. And then nothing to it, and then it reignited again, and then shortly after it got stamped out, and that coincided with the Big 12 and UConn reports, which turned out to be nothing ultimately as far as actual movement or offers or anything like that. So if you're a Gonzaga, it's pretty clear that you're trying to up your game a little bit, and you are an attractive basketball brand, and certainly have other sports that can fill out depending on what conference you're going to. But I think from the Big 12 point of view, everybody just cared about men's basketball. Like, that's it. Like, nobody cared about baseball or any of that stuff. It was all about basketball. But I do think as an all-sports institution, this is a really good move for Gonzaga. If you were told their fans they'd be in the Pac-12 one day, I'm sure they wouldn't have believed it necessarily. Now, it's a different Pac-12 than what you probably imagine, but I like what the Pac has done. I think they've added really quality teams, and I think this bolsters them in basketball and obviously keeps the geographic footprint all within that same part of the country. So I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think when you look at from top to bottom, it's not a power conference, but it is a very good non-power conference, and I don't know how much those labels will even matter moving forward, but the Pac is done as best as you could imagine, quite frankly, to refill their ranks after all of the events of the last year. And
full share and no football.
No,
so
that's right.
There you
nice.
go.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really great for them.
That wasn't happening in the Big 12, I doubt.
Yeah. Well, I talked to my friend, our friend, you know, Smoak Todd Zeidler, who used to work there, and just said, hey, Pac-12. And he's like, yeah, it's really exciting. And he said the best part is full share in no football. Like, that's great for them. I said there's going to be a lot of people that go, well, they should make them add a football team. And I said, look, unless they can be Notre Dame, you know, small Catholic school successful, it makes no sense for them. And basically right now they would go to the Pac-12 and be like, you guys want us to have football? Here's how much it costs for you to pay us to have football. Yep. You need to build a stadium and infrastructure and all these things they don't have. And the Pac-12 didn't go to them thinking that was going to happen. So this kind of works out for everybody. Plus, with San Diego State and Gonzaga in that conference, that's pretty fun to me.
Clint Moses, as a Washingtonian, he's an Oregon State fan. Mm-hmm. As a Washingtonian, I'm hyped for Gonzaga. I've seen the rise throughout the years. Back the Pac. So Clint Moses is happy about the
I think it's great. Like I said, for the Pac, I think it makes sense for all of the reasons, especially if you're getting that full share without football. I mean, that's a nice little sweetener on top of everything. So, yeah, I mean, them and San Diego State will be the headliner. Everybody else has got to get their ducks in a row when it comes to basketball to compete with those two. But that's a really nice starting point, and that's an attractive – potential conference championship game on the men's side. So, yeah, I think that adding Gonzaga to the portfolio made all the sense in the world for the Pac. From a Big 12 perspective, are you guys bummed at all that they're not going to be in the Big 12?
No, because, again, it'd be, for one sport, which is great, but, like the conference right now, basketball-wise, is pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Without Gonzaga, it's not like if they could just find that missing piece, like, they don't have a missing piece in the basketball conference. There's no missing piece.
In basketball, they have the names that some conferences have in football. And there's some of those same conferences that have names in football that also have them in basketball. But the Big 12 has top-level alpha names, tradition-rich, national championship programs. They don't have Kentucky. They don't have maybe UCLA, some of those names. UConn was a part of the mix, and there's a couple of others. I'm not trying to leave them out. But they have in basketball what anyone else would want, even if they have some names that are pretty darn good.
Yeah, I think the ACC's got something to say about that, too, with multiple programs. But, yeah, I don't care about them not being in the Big 12, not personally, like, attacking Gonzaga there. I'm glad they found a spot, and it was a nice step up for them, but I'm not shedding any tears over them not being in the Big 12. It's fun to think about, like, this fantasy league of basketball teams, and you definitely see where Brett Yormark was coming from, but I didn't feel like it was the end-all, be-all. Like, if you didn't do this, you're screwed, or if you did do this, it's going to put you over the top. I think, it would have been fun to see, but it doesn't change my opinion overall on the league. That was fun to kick around, though.
Granddad, thank you for the super chat. By the way, you could always do that. You can go up to the top of the overall live chat. Granddad, $5 super chat. Thank you. What is the scuttle about Texas State? And where would they fit better if they made a decision? Would it be the Mountain West or the Pac?
I think for them, just name alone, they fit better in the Pac. Gonzaga, is the only one without state in their name. So, like if they want to.
They brought him in anyway.
They brought him in anyway. Maybe they're going to be Gonzaga State soon. I don't know. I think that's for Texas State to determine. I don't think either choice, if they're going to leave the Sun Belt, which, again, to the point about UTEP and the Mountain West, it makes much more sense for Texas State to not have to go east as much like they would be in the Sun Belt and go west. It's a little easier, I would think, from San Marcos to go west than it is to go east, although it's not like they're in central Texas, southern part of central Texas, so it's not like they're way out like El Paso is. But, yeah, I mean, whatever works best for them and gets them the most money and most exposure, I say that, like, I don't know if one's necessarily better than the other.
I think your best situation would probably be the Pac-12 or Pac whatever it's going to be. I just think from a brand recognition standpoint, which is why you held on to the brand name to begin with, right, was you kind of like have an automatic just slight advantage in terms of like people knowing who you are and knowing a little bit about you, even though it's a wildly different looking conference. I mean, that would be the top level because it does feel like the Pac, at least in football, is going to be the fifth best conference. When you look at the teams that they've assembled, Boise State and Wazoo and Oregon State, et cetera, and then, you flip a switch on when certain teams are good in given years. So I think that'd be like the most ideal, but I don't know what money they're being offered. And the only offer that I know they have right now is Mountain West. So here's the good news for you, and appreciate the super chat, is if you're a Texas State fan, like, you're getting bumped up to some degree. Like, you're not going to be where you've been. You're going to be moving up. I don't know how like high the curve is or how high the angle of upward trajectory is, but it's definitely pointing upward, not downward or not sideways if you're Texas State. So it's a good position to be in, and I'm sure they're just trying to absorb a lot of information to figure out what's the best move. But, yeah, they've got the Mountain West offer, and they're almost assuredly moving. It's just a matter of what are the others talking to them about, and I'm sure we'll hear about that very, very soon because this needs to kind of wrap up at this point.
Yeah, and it just seemed like not quite a perfect bow, but it's getting closer to that. Also, today, the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award was honored, released their Player of the Week, Jalen Milroe, the Alabama quarterback, who has had a great start to his year. He does look so much better than he did a year ago at this time. Still has some things to do. I thought that Georgia just eventually just would not let him get outside, and Alabama just did not react to that very well, but he hit the big pass to the freshman, and they beat Georgia. So Jalen Milroe is the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award National Player of the Week for week number 5 for the games that were just played.
Yeah, product of K.D. Tompkins High School, and so this is for players from or playing in the state of Texas on offense, and it's a weekly thing, and his turn was this week, and rightfully so with the way that he played, especially early against Georgia. It wasn't quite all the way through because Georgia started to finally answer back, but, man, he was sizzling hot, especially there in the beginning, and he does look immensely improved in that offense of Kalen DeBoer. So glad to see him performing the way that he is. He seems to be having a lot of fun. It seems to be very comfortable, and it certainly looks like it's working. And I'm sure it's fun to throw to guys like Ryan Williams and have them make plays for you as long as you get the ball in their hands. But, yeah, very deserved for his performance. There was a few others that had big days, but I think given the circumstances, playing a top-ranked team like Georgia and putting up the numbers that you did, that was a pretty easy choice for voters.
Also, and like you have Ashton Genty in that mix among some others.
He could make an argument, yeah.
Yeah. Now, let's go to the defensive efficiency ratings in the Big 12. Remember, John Teicher is just around the corner. He covers UTEP. He's the voice of UTEP, has been now for 4 decades. Here is how the defensive efficiency rankings are so far through the first 5 weeks of the season with Adam McClintock, college football _professor. Not a surprise. I mean, how about this, though? Colorado 3rd. Cyclones of Iowa State, BYU 1 and 2, Utah, most everybody. Houston 6, despite their struggles. And then look at that. You have Iowa State, BYU, and then Colorado has inserted itself at number 3 in the defensive efficiency rankings. I saw this even against Baylor. Even though they got fortunate with the Hail Mary, they couldn't protect Shedeur. They did against UCF. They still weren't running the ball well. They sure did well enough against UCF. They stopped the run. They got to they grew up in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the more interesting things, though, and shows you kind of the way that some of the teams that thought they were going to be better have been so wonky, is if you look at the bottom, TCU, not surprisingly, at 16th in defensive efficiency ratings. West Virginia started out not great in that as well, 15th. And, Baylor at 9th, I think they would expect to do a little bit better. This is also, as Adam says, not adjusted for schedule strength yet, and will fluctuate once they play more and more Big 12 games, because not everybody's played the same amount of that yet. So we'll see. Offensively, on the other side of this, when you look at the offensive efficiency ratings, some of this is like almost completely flipped upside down when you see like TCU number 2 in offensive efficiency, number 16 in defensive efficiency. But Iowa State, and one of the reasons they're so good, number 1 in defense, number 5 in offense right now.
Yeah, that's a pretty good
in the Big 12. That's
yeah.
balance right there. UCF number 6 and number 14, out of whack, right? Out of whack. You can't do that. And Kansas State, number 10 and like number 3 or number 5, a little bit more out of whack. Teams got to find a little more balance. Kansas in the bottom in both, though, and they've had wheels off.
Yeah, Arizona, the number 1 offensive efficiency team right now with TCU and Tech. Not a surprise. Cincinnati has really been good offensively with Sorsby. He was a part of the nominations for the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award, having himself a very nice start for Coach Satterfield and company. Let's see, Garrett. let's go. Now, we'll do the Super League discussion later on. It's hypothetical, but I saw a couple of comments that were made about what would happen if SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey kind of pushed back on this. We'll get to that. That's like a segment.
Who?
That will, the SEC Commissioner.
Boo!
Yeah, him.
Boo!
How about this note? Kirby Smart, when he loses, a coach that beats him. This is from our guest at 4 o'clock, Brett McMurphy. He comes up with some amazing nuggets. So if you beat Kirby Smart, which not many people have done, DeBoer on Saturday was the 12th coach to beat him. 5 of those are out of coaching. 6 of them fired from the school that beat Georgia, like where they were when they beat Georgia. Here are the 6 who are fired, who are no longer at the school and when they beat Georgia. Hugh Freeze, Tom Herman, Butch Jones, Gus Malzahn, Derek Mason, and Jim McElwain. Those are the ones who beat him, and they're no longer at those schools. They're in college football, and, of course, we know some of them are head coaches. The others who beat him but are now out of coaching. Nick Saban retired, okay? Dan Mullen fired. Ed Orgeron fired. Will Muschamp fired. And Paul Johnston at Georgia Tech was at Navy, retired. So 2 of those 5. 2 of the 12, well, DeBoer counts 3 of the 12. 2 of them left on their own, and 1 of them is still coaching, at the same school in which he beat Kirby Smart.
Yeah, it's hard to do. And really, I'm starting to wonder if he just gets locked up by the jerseys on Alabama.
Well, he's what is he 1-6 or something like that, or maybe more than that against that. They're hard to beat. I mean, it's like there's certain schools that just have you. Barry Switzer owned Tom Osborne. There are certain people that own certain programs that when they're in the top 5 or top 10, and Georgia is still good. They did win the national championship game during a year in which they had lost in the SEC. So, you know, they do have those 2 national titles back-to-back up until 22 and 23. 23, last year when Michigan did win it. All right, John Teicher, voice of UTEP. He'll join us in a moment. And then Ari Temkin, part of Big 12 Media and Radio on TuneIn Radio. Brett McMurphy, our Bob Bowlesby pod. I'm getting the names down because I've been scolded about saying pod 2 or whatever. It's UCF, Cincinnati, BYU, and Houston today. We'll look back at what they've done and also look ahead to what they have coming up. And also, former Iowa State quarterback Dave Archer will join us. He does broadcasts for the Atlanta Falcons of the NFL, where he played, and he's also a broadcaster for Compass Radio Network, and did the Alabama-Georgia game for them. This is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas. Dr. Steve Childress, my dentist, and thank goodness that he is, because he finally kind of like had that scared straight moment with me. I went into the dentist during the COVID time, and I had something that was hurting me badly, and it might have been when I bit down on something, even maybe during the show. And I had this like pain. If you've ever had a tooth that's going to get pulled, a cavity, a root canal, where it shoots up the side of your face, and then it feels like half your face is on fire. I had that happen. Contacted him. He took care of me on a Friday evening after he had been shut down for the day, was out to dinner with his wife, and then told me, meet me at the office, a clinic, a little bit later on. I did. He fixed it for that moment. He got me through the weekend. Then Monday morning, bright and early in his chair, they got serious about taking care of that tooth. He's done that with me now 2 or 3 times and told me straight, David, either you stop doing this, you stop having all these sweets and chewing all this stuff, you're going to end up with nothing. Nothing. And I have lost a handful of teeth already at the age of 65. But I'm getting better at it, and he's the one that helped me turn the corner. If you're looking for a dentist, he is amazing. He has others that are a part of his office, and, of course, great tech specialists, hygienists, and more. Maybe it's just a teeth cleaning. What you need, they have it. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas.
The Jeep Adventure Days closeout at Allen Samuels just got bigger and better than ever, with $15,000 off a 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland Demo with a V8 Hemi. Or how about a 2023 Dodge Charger RT with $15,000 off? or a Charger Scat Pack with $11,000 off. Ask about the hot deals on the 2024 Wagoneers and get 3.9% for 72 months. Only at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
John Teicher will join us in about an hour. It's 3:25. This is 365 Sports. David Smoak and Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, and we do appreciate the voice of UTEP Athletic will join us in about an hour. So what we'll do here is the Bowlesby Pod.
Yeah. So I want to tell why this happened because I want to brag about Texas.
It's so big.
I only live in states. Look, Florida has 2 time zones. Texas has 2 time zones. You know, I am only willing to live in states that have 2 time zones. Like, I don't want to live in your
How many
wimpy.
does Alaska have?
Alaska has 2 time zones.
Right, yeah.
Michigan does, Kansas, Nevada, Idaho, North Dakota, Kentucky, Tennessee.
It's half the country.
So, no, I mean, there's 11. There's 11 states with 2 time zones. So,
well, he said 325, and Drew Bonney from UTEP Media Relations, and I didn't see the MT next to it. So that's next hour, 425. All right, so the Bowlesby Pod, Big 12, what have they done lately? And what are they doing right this absolute week and this minute? And we start the Bowlesby Pod with UCF. Oh, my goodness. What was such a bright, unbelievable, attended, big noon kickoff. Largest crowd, they said, ever. Unbelievable energy, as you can imagine, at the Bounce House and in Orlando. And they then thud.
Yeah. And this is one I was so dead wrong about because I just thought, you know, even though Colorado's playing better, the thing that UCF does really well is the thing that Colorado's bad at, which is stopping the run.
Or had been bad at. And then they were able, well, I think one of the things they were able to do is they were able to build a lead so that late in the game, and the reason the UCF runs game is so good lately, outside of the TCU game, is they've gotten ahead of people and they just run the ball. And this was, you know, only their second real or third real test of the season. And, you know, Colorado came out and got a lead and kind of made that whole offense moot and took them out of their game plan.
And that's really the first time I've seen Colorado do that in 2 years, where they were so effective on both sides of the ball that UCF kind of had abandoned who they are for a little while. And that to me is growth. That means that you can contend. If you can take a team out of their game plan early in the game, that's good stuff there. So, but UCF surprised. I think they'll bounce back for the most part. These things are going to happen, but really surprised that they did not control the flow of that game given what we thought it was. But look, Colorado's growing up.
Yeah, I mean, Colorado played really well. Give them a lot of credit. They didn't come out in the next game and have a hangover like their opponent the previous week did. They came out and very well could have been emotional and overhyped and looking past UCF because they had been celebrating, and instead they looked like a well-oiled machine, and I think that bodes really well for Dion and company that they're playing well, but they also seem to have a good focus, and this would have been a time to perhaps have a lapse, and instead they roll into Orlando and handle their business and made it look very easy. That was an incredible crowd at UCF, great audience on TV, 4 million plus people for that game alone. So the Colorado attraction continues on as far as TV ratings go. And with that big stage in front of them, UCF just messed the bed. I mean, they did. KJ Jefferson and that offense, I was shocked by how difficult it was for them to run the football and to be effective. I really thought that Colorado would have a hard time stopping them, and was even pumping up of like, man, get ready to watch, this whole contingent of running backs and your running quarterback just smash on that Colorado defense. And instead they smashed it was the other way around. Like that Colorado defense smashed the UCF offense that has been so prolific. Shedeur did his thing. Travis Hunter did his thing. He's got a touchdown. He's got an interception. He's still very much in the Heisman conversation, deservedly so. But, yeah, I think the turnovers were killer here for UCF. You had the big scoop and score at the end of the game to just add insult to injury. But K.J. Jefferson with a couple of interceptions, turned the ball over when you got an opportunity to score. Just seemed like most, though, of all was that we hadn't really seen UCF get tested all that much, and they went up against probably the best passing test not named Arizona in the conference, and maybe you throw somebody else in there, but I think we're pretty safe with Arizona and Colorado saying they've got great passing games. Colorado's more depth to theirs because they have more weapons. It's not just Teteroa McMillan and Noah Fafita going back and forth. This is Shedeur having a bunch of good targets, and I think that the shocking thing is just like, wow, imagine when they got a running game going along with that. But they tested that secondary, and they broke that secondary, and now we know a bit more about UCF and what they've got on the back end, and it wasn't good enough against Colorado.
And now they play a game that has been like waiting for a special dinner, especially with Florida a little bit. Well, they're gimpy. But this could have been a game coming off another win. And now I would think that Gus Malzahn and his football team kind of went back to like no outside noise. We focus on us, which is what you're supposed to do anyway. And now they get the showdown with the team in their state that they are jealous of, and yet another team that's always had the tradition that is struggling in Florida.
Yeah, I don't know how UCF fans will take being – you saying jealous of, but I'm sure they are. Like, I mean, I know, but, as fans, you don't want to say, like, we're jealous of Florida. But, yeah, I mean, from the standpoint of, like, sure, Texas Tech and Baylor would love to have Texas' success.
Sure,
yeah.
I think they aspire to
that.
Yeah,
sure.
I think that's the more dignified way to say it. I do know this, though.
I'm not dignified.
That the Florida faithful look down on UCF and always will. UCF could have 7, like in the next 100 years, could have 7 presidents elected that came from their school, doctors that cure cancer, Nobel laureates, and all that, and Florida would still be like, oh, it's a commuter school in Orlando. Like, that's how they look at it because they're the old guard of the state. So
they're an original member of Augusta National.
Yeah, exactly. So they're going to look down on anybody that's not them, and especially a school that's new by their standards like UCF. Well, UCF's, probably a more complete team than Florida is right now. Now, I don't know what's going to happen when they roll into the swamp. It's always a hard place to play. Until a month ago, it was always a hard place to play. It's not so much right now, but If they can go in and win that game, Billy Napier's probably on his way out the door Sunday morning, if not Saturday night. And UCF has, another badge on the wall because they beat him in the bowl game a couple years ago.
Yeah, and if not, then they're really licking their wounds with back-to-back losses, and all of a sudden the tone has changed down in Orlando after a really nice start. So, yeah, this is an important game to just see how they bounce back from getting embarrassed. And make no bones about it, they got embarrassed by Colorado on Saturday. It happens to everybody. It's happened to Colorado, and it will probably happen again to all parties sooner rather than later. But, yeah, I don't know what to make of Florida in this game. I really don't. This is a very closely spread. There's a close spread on this game, and I think you go to ESPN's predictor machine, it's 51-49. So I think every metric is pointing at this being a close game, and not anybody really having a good idea of what to expect. Had UCF gone in and rolled Colorado, you'd be like, yeah, UCF's going to go in the swamp and they're going to win. But after last week, it's was DJ Lagway going to throw for 300 yards on that secondary? Are they going to shut down the running attack like Colorado was able to do? Because I'd imagine Florida's got some better players up front. But yeah, this is it's kind of a toss-up game, which is crazy to think. UCF did get the last laugh in that Gasparilla Bowl, which led to one of the funnier memes that I saw in the last couple of years, and I don't know who the girl is. I've seen her on Twitter before, but it was back when we were still doing everything over Zoom. And I guess she's from Florida. She's a UCF girl and was on a Zoom call with a Florida coworker, and she had on her UCF polo and then had the game score in the background as her backdrop. So it was just hilarious that she was talking trash on this work call. And that's what I remember from that Gasparilla Bowl was that celebration. But they've only played 3 times. Florida won the first couple in 99 and 06, and then that Gasparilla Bowl just 2 years ago, UCF got that first win over the Gators. So see if they can't tie this all-time series up, but easier said than done.
All right, Cincinnati went to Tech, lost in Lubbock. Very entertaining game, back and forth. A pick six at the end of the game kind of pretty much sealed it up for Tech, and Cincinnati was still trying to drive to maybe kick a game-tying field goal. They're playing well. The offense puts up a lot of points and yards. They're off this week, as is BYU, who's a part of the Bowlesby pod, as they're off after the win against Baylor. But Cincinnati, BYU off. Houston, and we will touch on the teams I mentioned, but Houston is at TCU. That's a Friday night game in the Big 12, and Houston's a part of the Bowlesby pod too.
Yeah, so I think Cincinnati did a lot of things that you liked in that game against Texas Tech, just hanging in there given the injuries that they had, losing the top 2 running backs, and especially when you know what those guys, starting with Corey Kiners, you know what part of the muscle that they are for that UCF offense to basically just say, all right, Brendan Sorsby, you got to throw us to victory here and then run a little bit when you can. That was asking a lot, and he damn near did it. I think he's a really good quarterback who's just really getting started, and he's only going to get better and better, but he's definitely an improvement upon what we saw from them last year. I think they're a good team. I think they had a bunch of ways to win that game, and I'm not so sure if they don't have a couple guys get hurt that they don't win that game if they're able to run the ball more effectively. Luckily for Tech, that wasn't the case. That's part of Tech knocking guys out of the game too. That's part of the back and forth, but I haven't seen an update on Corey Kiner, so I don't know what the status is there on him or Pryor, but without knowing that, it's hard to know kind of what to expect from them moving forward. But I like what I've seen. They're definitely improved from last year. Sorsby's definitely the guy at QB. If their running backs are healthy, they're going to be hell for a lot of teams. They were bull rushing Texas Tech's O-line. They were all up in the backfield, and they were getting a lot of pressure, but it just ultimately wasn't enough. But I think they're in a good spot. Obviously, you want to be better than you are. You're thinking of the playoff a couple of years ago, and I know that's been kind of a downward spiral for them, but I think you've got to be excited about what you've seen, and you definitely know you should have a couple more wins than you even have. If you look back at, the Pitt game, and then Texas Tech, you had a real shot on a Saturday night in Lubbock in a shootout. You damn near won it without a couple of your better players, so I think that's very encouraging, and I like the energy right now around Scott Satterfield's crew, and I didn't always feel that way, but I do feel that way after watching them a handful of times now.
All right, BYU is off. We've discussed them quite a bit yesterday. We'll go back to them in a second, but let's go to Houston. We know that they obviously are desperate to get a win. The first year under Willie Fritz, there's so much furniture to replace and new furniture and renovations and whatever. At TCU, coming off, it's not about TCU, it's about Houston, but TCU coming off the win against KU. Houston just playing it out, and just every game you hope that players who are inexperienced and young or whoever recruits from Willie Fritz have a chance to get snaps.
Yeah, Houston's just Royden described this. He was just Royden Ogletree was just on me in the triple option. You know, they're like rebuilding the car from scratch, and they don't have wheels yet. Like they've got parts, but they don't have that yet. This is what happens in year one of a coach, and so they've got to find out. They've just got to figure out what they have, who they are, what you can do, and those things are going to come throughout the year. Unfortunately for them, they're in a conference that's pretty closely matched. You know, the other 15 teams ahead of them, and it's not going to be. They're not going to get a get right week, because they're the get right week. That's what sucks for them, is that they're the get right week right now. But long term, I think things are good for Houston, but short term, it's just going to be rough.
There's no doubt, Craig. I know you got to go. You're up next. There's no doubt that Houston and Baylor, as of now, will be on nothing but ESPN Plus. And there's always a handful of games each weekend, but that is destined for an ESPN Plus game.
I mean, those two playing each other, yeah, for sure. I think they'll probably each have, another opportunity to be on national TV, but playing each other, yeah, I don't see how there's an audience really for that at all. Even when they're average, it's two smaller schools, right, that have their little pockets. But regardless, I think that Houston's got a really good defense. Maybe really good's putting too much on it, but I think you've got an above-average good defense that's got a lot of promise. And I think you saw some of that in that Iowa State game. It was 3-0 at halftime, guys.
Oh, I know.
It was 3-0 at halftime. Iowa State wins 20-0. But Houston's defense played well enough for them to win that game. Unfortunately, they don't have an offense to save their life. And Donovan Smith's just not that guy at quarterback. Did y'all see the final stat lines from this game, by the way?
I did.
71 yards passing for Donovan Smith on 8 of 12 attempts. 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. Zion Chris, the transfer, he got a little bit of playing time. He threw 4 passes. 1 was a completion. He actually threw 2 completions technically because 1 was to his team, the other was to the other team. But he was 1 for 4 with 1 yard passing and 1 interception. So that quarterback play is not going to win any games. I don't care who you are. So start there. That offense needs a lot of work, but that defense is at least making them, make other teams work for it a little bit like they did with Iowa State last week. But, yeah, this is the start of a building project. They're building the foundation right now. That defense is a good place to start, but they just don't have what they need to be competitive this year.
Yeah, and that quarterback they have the commitment from is not until for another couple of years as they try to figure out what they're going to do there. Donovan Smith got a lot of last-minute push before the season about what he might be at the next level. They need to figure out what he can be at this level. He had problems with turnovers when he was at Tech. There's no question that has been an issue with him.
They only threw it 16 times, but 72 yards passing.
Yeah, they ran for like 170.
They ran for 170, but and I know some of that's Iowa State's defense as well that everybody's mimicked in the Big 12, but still 72 passing yards, unless you're like freaking Army or something, like you got to throw for more than 72 yards.
Army threw like 7 last weekend. They got pass happy. All right, Ari Temkin, is he with us?
Yes, he is.
All right, well, we're now joined by Ari Temkin, Big 12 Radio Network on TuneIn Radio. Ari joins us, and effective next week, he'll be with us every Monday, barring some conflicts that come up because he's a busy man. Ari, I mean, teams that needed wins played against teams that needed wins, and you had what TCU did. You had what Kansas State did. You saw BYU flex their muscles. Arizona said, hey, don't forget about us. Isn't it lovely? And then, of course, Colorado at UCF, the loveliness of you never know in the Big 12 Conference.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you think you've got things figured out, that's as soon as you figure out you really don't know what you're talking about. And take it from me, I went 0 for 5 this week and picking the 5 games that I picked in the Big 12 against the spread, and my record is brutal this year. It's like 6 for 19. So yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to predicting these games and predicting who's going to win. I mean, I thought UCF would cover against Colorado. That they completely flipped the script in that game. Arizona that had defensively struggled and had not been able to get other weapons involved beyond just T-Mac suddenly did that, and their defense showed up. So yeah, it's whatever you expect to happen is not going to happen, at the exception of my Jayhawks, it appears.
The wheels are off in Lawrence.
I mean, it's not Florida State, Paul, but it's, it's bad.
Hey,
man, what a game that would be, huh?
Hey, 1-4 is 1-4.
That would be an ESPN
brother.
Plus game too.
1-4 is 1-4.
Yeah.
You know,
it's all bad.
Yeah, look, we're both ugly chicks at the bar, hoping to get whatever we can. Like, there's no dressing it up. Like, yours
Lindenwood
might be in slightly better shape than mine, but like, it's not.
Well, it's like a half win at that because they beat an NAIA school. So I mean,
exactly.
It's unbelievable.
So we won't talk about Kansas much, Ari, because I also have to go home today. But when you look at the way this conference is now shaking out with BYU on top, Colorado looks like they might be an actual complete team. You know, like in a sense that they can win games a couple different ways. It's 3 weeks ago we kind of all thought like, well, this Dion thing was cool while it lasted, but it doesn't look like it's going to stick. And now the league is topsy-turvy and nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah, no, I mean, Colorado's the best example of it, I think. Maybe Arizona is. It's like the transitive property thing, that's rearing its ugly head. I mean, Colorado is really interesting because I think, like, let's separate the fact from fiction when it comes to them and really everybody. So, like, what do we know after 4 or 5 games for these teams? Colorado can defend. This is a dramatic improvement defensively from what we saw last year. And that, it'll come and go from the standpoint of they may give up some yards or you're going to have some interceptions. They're going to lead to some points. But ultimately, I mean, what they've done under first-year defensive coordinator Robert Livingston is impressive. We actually recorded an interview with him today. And, he came in with the right mentality. This is a guy that spent a decade with the Bengals organization, still very young. Not much of a connection to Dion, so he may have come highly recommended. But just kind of wanted to put together a defensive game plan week to week that would benefit his players. And I think it's doing that. Also shared a hilarious story about Travis Hunter that he was talking strategy with him on the sideline. And suddenly Travis is like, hold on, I'll be right back, coach. And then Livingston looks up and sees Travis Hunter streaking down the sideline for a 60-yard touchdown pass. So it's like, awesome. That's just, I mean, what he's doing, what Travis Hunter's doing is absurd. And I mean, from a guy that coached at the NFL level, I mean, he's going to be a two-way player at that level too, because try to figure out which side of the ball he's better at. You're taking away half the field on one side, and the ability as a explosive wide receiver, you're just not getting the full boat if you take this guy to the top 5 pick. But I digress. The thing though with Colorado is it's like they completely flipped the script on UCF, where they stopped UCF's run. And again, the Colorado defense is something we can look at and say, like, this is drastically improved. I'm buying that. It's the run game that, okay, let's see it now work for a few straight games. I mean, let's see how explosive this offense can be in terms of running the football and then passing, because that's obviously going to limit the amount of opportunities you can get hits on Shedeur Sanders. So that's kind of the thing that I'm looking for moving forward is, the offensive line didn't look to be much improved, especially coming out of that Baylor game. It certainly did in this game on Saturday. And so, again, they have a bye week now. So what do they look like coming out of the bye week? Arizona, that's one of those things we talked about. One of the trends for them was that, they couldn't defend very well and they weren't getting opportunities, for guys other than T-Mac in terms of their receivers and weapons. And, Matt Adkins, who been their tight end coach, took over during the bye week as the play caller. And we saw immediately, what that looks like. They got their tight end way more involved. This is a guy that they were talking throughout the offseason, like he was going to be a huge part of their offense. So I think the mistake that they made was handing the reins to Dino Babers and not just giving it to Adkins from the start. And, what we saw was, an impressive win. Now, will we continue to see Isaac Wilson? Because I think they also showed a blueprint of, really force. And they had the corners on the outside. A guy like Takario Davis just completely took away receivers for Utah. And I think so what they did is they basically said, Dwayne Aquina, our old buddy from Texas, said, we're going to play straight up on the outside one-on-one and see if Isaac Wilson can consistently beat us. And we're going to bail out to stop the run against a guy like Mekhi Bernard, who is really, really spectacular. So, we don't know the future of Cam Rising. I think we all expect that he'll be back following the bye week, but we spent an entire season last year figuring that at some point Rising would be back, only to never see him come back. So I hope we do. Utah, and to me, guys, big picture, what I learned this week is Utah could represent a second potential playoff bid for the Big 12, because we know the type of esteem that the country, the perception of Utah, what the perception is of them. And they have a legitimate excuse here with 3 weeks playing games without Cam Rising. They went 2-1 with Isaac Wilson. If we're looking at teams that can potentially look at the committee and say, hey, this is a potential extra team that, again, maybe Utah wins the Big 12 and it's moot. But if Utah doesn't win the Big 12, I think and depending obviously how the rest of it shakes out, if Cam Rising does play and comes back healthy and plays to his potential, I think Utah has a built-in excuse here that could play well when it comes to the committee to get the Big 12 in a second bid.
Ari, how all in are you on BYU? I mean, the big 21-0 lead, 31-14 at halftime. They were dominating, and then Baylor came roaring back after the slow start. But they're 5-0, man, and Jake Retzlaff has been much better than I anticipated him being. The defense is obviously very strong. They've got a break now, and then they'll have Arizona at home, Oklahoma State at home, so they don't go on the road again until like a month to the end of this month, plus the bye. So what are your thoughts on where the things stand with the Cougars and Kalani Sitake?
Yeah, certainly if there's a fan base that can, identify what I'm going through as a Kansas fan, it would be Baylor with these two backbreaking finishes in back-to-back weeks. The thing, so first off, man, what if Sawyer Robertson hit Monterey Baldwin down the seam late in this game?
Yep. Like the Colorado game when he had Ashton Hawkins and you didn't connect on that one either. Yep.
So, Baylor basically had 3 possessions down the stretch of this game, down 6 points, and BYU's defense turned them away all 3 times. And that, to me, that's BYU has defensively been so good this year. They obviously weren't in this game in terms of points. They had really been limiting teams to points, and so they gave up a ton of points by their standards in this game. But I just thought, man, when they needed 3 stops, that's what they got. There was 3 possessions that Baylor had, I think starting with about 8 minutes to go in the game, down 6, and they turned them away on all 3 possessions. One of those included, that miss on Robertson to Baldwin, and then one of them was after the INT with Retzlaff threw a pick with 4 minutes to go, and BYU's defense did it again. So that's, am I buying them? Yes, because their defense is legit, and I think again we saw that down the stretch of the Baylor game. When they needed it most, that's when they got the stops, and their defense did a really good job, especially given some pretty, significant circumstances. And then how they mismanaged that last possession where they got the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, which saved a timeout for Baylor. Even then, they kind of shot themselves in the foot a few times down the stretch of that game and still got those stops. So I'm a believer in them. Paul got to see a pretty good seed at SMU Florida State this weekend. Sorry, Paul, but I saw SMU BYU this year, and I was not impressed with SMU leaving that game. So, again, showing how good BYU's defense is now in hindsight, they held Jennings in check that game in a big way. They're very impressive, and their turnaround, guys, year over year on the defensive side of the football is remarkable. They didn't add a ton in terms of personnel, but it's Jay Hill, a guy that we expected to be a really good defensive coordinator for them. A long-time Utah assistant, worked with Kalani Sitake, Utah, became a head coach at Weber State, and then rejoined his friend Kalani Sitake at BYU last year when he needed it. And their defense was really, really bad last year. And again, it's not as if their personnel is dramatically better. They did add a guy like Jack Kelly, who I think is really good in the middle of their linebacking core, but Tyler Batty, they've just got a bunch of dudes, and it's the right system and scheme. And they're, again, playing exceedingly well. So I think that gives them an opportunity with Retzlaff, who's coming around. He had a huge first half, obviously, in that game where there was, a 4-touchdown cushion at halftime. And then, again, their defense sort of probably rested a little bit and took for granted what Baylor was going to be able to do. Sawyer Robertson hit them, looked impressive. But yeah, I'm buying BYU. And again, the reason I picked Baylor to win and cover this week was, one, all the public money was on BYU, and so I faded them. But two, they couldn't win games. The Vampire Cougars was real. Their record in night games so much better than their record in day games. So I think getting over that part of it too is huge for them. Winning on the road. This is obviously a team that wins a ton at home. They've got a huge home field advantage. they're legit. And again, it's not as if their personnel is that much different. It's just the coaching and the scheme and the confidence. The one thing I'm concerned about with them is their running game. They're LJ Martin, they're down running backs here. And though they've gotten enough, it's just a lot to put on a quarterback that in Retzloff that, has thrown a propensity to throw some picks, doesn't complete balls at a high percentage, still has some flaws. But when it comes down to having a good defense and getting stops at a man, BYU is really good at that.
Well, after they played SMU has scored over 100 points against TCU and Florida State.
And they didn't score a touchdown in that game. In that game against BYU.
Yeah. No,
and again, I went to that game thinking both these teams aren't very good.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, BYU's definitely been one of the surprises. Absolutely one of the surprises this year.
Yeah, and the thing is, every person we talked to from BYU around the program all off season was like, I don't know.
Yeah,
they just didn't know. And then it's been a ridiculous
for the Oklahoma State
surprise. Yeah.
Look at Oklahoma State going into last year, and there was just nothing on paper that you saw that was like, oh, this team's going to be good. Of course, this year, Oklahoma State was the exact opposite, and now look at how good they look. Yep. But, I mean, in many ways, BYU, from a personnel standpoint, you couldn't look at their roster and think this is going to be a dramatic turnaround. It's just the stuff that you couldn't see. And, again, we probably should have given a little bit more credit to Jay Hill, who in year two, it's just a vastly improved defense. And I think, look, I think that's what TCU's going through right now, too. It's hard to go from that. And BYU didn't do this exactly, but TCU's going from a 3-down front to more of a 4-2-5, more of a, an even front. And like that takes time. You've got to build up your personnel. You need wider personnel than you do in that 3-man front. So I think TCU's going through that a little bit right now with Andy Avalos in year one.
Ari Temkin, Big 12 Radio Network, with us on TuneIn Radio. We'll start next week to be with us on Mondays in the 3 o'clock, late 3 o'clock hour at 3:40. Is BYU this year's West Virginia?
I mean, they might be this year's Oklahoma State. At this point,
yeah, okay.
I mean, look, I think the biggest jump that's being made right now is the quarterback position. If you watched BYU at the tail end of last year, there was really not much, save for the Oklahoma State game, that gave you confidence that he could be and should be the guy moving forward. I think, so when you look at what they brought in from a competition standpoint, you wondered, okay, how good, how limited will they be there because the quarterback's just not very good. And the clue perhaps was in that Oklahoma State game where Retzloff played a lot better. Remember, they should have beaten Oklahoma State the last game of the season, but they didn't because Oklahoma State was the beneficiary of some crazy turnovers and some crazy things that happened at the end of that game. And then again, sometimes your personnel, you might look like one of the things in college that's so hard to do is, look at returning production and then project out. Because sometimes, like in the case of Oklahoma State, how good was that offensive line? It's great to have everybody back, but how good was it? And in the case of BYU, you looked at the defense and you thought, man, everybody's back, but what does that tell us? I mean, BYU had I think it was 11 sacks the entire season last year, and Tyler Batty had 5.5 of them. And they lose their best linebacker who missed a good portion of the year last year, and Ben Bywater, because, he didn't return. So you're like, again, from a personnel standpoint, there was really nothing on paper that would lead you to believe that BYU would be as good as they are. It's the coaching. We should have probably put a little bit more stock in Jay Hill in year two. And then, again, sometimes in college, you expect guys to make jumps year over year, and sometimes they don't. I mean, we see this all the time, like where you just expect the older guys get, the better they are. And that's not necessarily a 1-to-1. Sometimes guys regress. They don't put in the work in the offseason. They don't do the things they need to do to get better. And sometimes the guys like a Jake Retzloff, they do exceed their potential from what we saw previous years. So, yeah, I mean, West Virginia is a good comp too in terms of, could they be a 9-win team? But again, I think if the first half of the season has told us anything, this is gut check time now. The calendar's turned to October. This is where the football season truly starts. We have much better trends on these teams. We have much better sense of who they are, much better sample. So we'll see now that BYU goes from being, the hunter to the hunted in a sense. So we'll see how they come out the other side of it. And they've got a tough stretch here coming up.
All right, Ari, thank you, buddy. Appreciate you. Keep doing what you're doing with the Big 12 radio show on TuneIn, and we'll talk to you next Monday. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate you guys. Take care.
Ari Temkin with us. Appreciate the summary of the Big 12. Brett McMurphy around the corner, and then we'll hear from the voice of UTEP as we tried to do John Teicher at 4:25. Off the radar, Dave Archer, John McClain, top 5, a busy show. We have a couple of the topics to get to. We will. But coming up next, Brett McMurphy, Gonzaga, the Pac-12. It's what he said back in September a couple of weeks ago. That's next. This is 365 Sports. I'm having trouble today, Paul. The Baylor alumni fan engagement. They are led by Doug Furch and Paul Thorpe. They do a great job of when there's a game. For example, Baylor's on the road against Ames. If you live in the Des Moines area, if you're up in that Iowa area and you want to kind of find a way to do a tailgate with Baylor, contact them at Baylor Alumni. You can go on the website of baylor.edu and find their link. If you want to set up a watch party for when Baylor is in Lubbock and you are there, you can do that, even though people like Kim Coulter and Katie Rader and others will not want you in the city. No, they welcome you with open arms. And if you want to do a watch party, you're maybe in Chicago, Salt Lake City, which is a huge, huge area for Baylor alums, or maybe Orlando, and you want to put together a watch party, contact them. They'll help promote it for you and also even help you set up if you need help with that too. When they're on the road, you can be in touch with them wherever you are when they go play, whether it's football or basketball, NCAA tournaments, Big 12 tournament, Kansas City. That's what they do. The Baylor Alumni Fan Engagement with Doug Furch and Paul Thorpe.
Score big savings at the Kickoff the Savings event at Richard Carr Buick. A 2024 Car and Driver Magazine Editor's Choice, the all-new Buick Envista starts at only $23,990. Or make the winning drive in a 2024 Buick Encore GX SUV and save $4,000 for non-GM car owners. Or save $1,000 on 2024 Buick Envisions in stock. Qualified buyers get 0.9% financing and no payments for 90 days. Score your deal at the Kickoff the Savings event going on now at Richard Carr Buick.
At Richard Carr, we give you more.
Edward Jones Financial Advisors Josh Satterfield and John Maddox understand these are difficult and changing times we live in, but they know how important your financial investments are to you. So is your financial advisor staying in touch with you and helping you navigate today's financial climate? When you invest with Edward Jones Financial Advisors Josh Satterfield, John Maddox, and Sean Carter, they will provide their time and experience to help you reach your goals. And like coaching athletes, investing money is about time, patience, and encouragement. Josh Satterfield and Sean Carter on Wycon Road off Bagby, and John Maddox on Sapphire Boulevard in Hewitt. Proud sponsors of Midway Panthers football. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Membership SIPC.
El Conquistador Restaurants are a very proud sponsor of the Midway Panthers, have been owned and operated by the Gonzalez family since 1969. El Conquistador is recognized annually as a local favorite with their fast and friendly service. Dine in or order takeout and enjoy your favorite Tex-Mex items as well as several traditional menu items. Catering is also available with 3 locations to serve you: Waco, Belmead, and Hillsboro. The Gonzalez family thanks you in Waco and the surrounding area for your continued support of 55 years in business. Go Panthers!
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Containing only 95 calories and 2.6 carbs.
Brett McMurphy, Action Network HQ. A lot of news today, Brett. Surprising news. Hadn't heard about this before. That Gonzaga was headed to the Pac-12, and I think you were well ahead of the curve, and a lot of people kind of like threw darts at you on that. And today, I guess you're not one to pat yourself on the back, but yeah, you could pat yourself on the back.
They were throwing more than darts. And I remember talking to you guys, and I said, look, I'll be honest. I trust my sources. I've been told Gonzaga is going to the Pac-12. Everybody else on the face of the earth says I'm wrong, and I'm sticking with it. And I said, we'll find out. And, we found out. And, unfortunately, nobody listening wants to hear this, so I'll make it very brief. It's like today's media. You report something, and then either A, someone confirms it, and then they don't attribute it to the person that broke it first, or B, they say it's inaccurate and then spin it on how wrong you are, even though it is accurate. But anyway, I know you don't want to talk about that. But, hey, it's great for the Pac-12. They still got to add another full member. Not reporting this, my opinion. I think they circle back and they go after some teams from the American. The question is, can they get the money high enough to make it enticing for those schools to leave the American? Because Smoky, quite frankly, they're making more in the American than I think what they can get from the Pac-12. Will that change with the addition of Gonzaga, even though it's a non-football school, and maybe some different things they can try to do? We'll have to find out. But basically, we're waiting on that. We're waiting on the Mountain West to fill out their dance card. And then it should settle down until the ACC, does whatever they're going to do in a few years.
Brent, where is Memphis, you think, in that pecking order when they circle back around to the American? I know their fans in particular have been on pins and needles for going on years now with the Big 12 flirtations and all of that, and they're kind of looking at this potentially last life raft. Do you think Memphis is one of those teams potentially that they look at again?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they'll be at the top of the list. It's funny, their athletic director, I don't know if you saw his comments recently, when it came out that the schools were remaining in the American, he basically flat out said they didn't offer us enough money. Basically, if you would have offered us more, we would have went. He wasn't that direct, but for an AD, he was almost that direct, which is, I guess, is surprising, but isn't surprising. Hey, I give him credit. At least he's being honest. He's not, downplaying it or not talking to the media or saying, oh, these reports are inaccurate. He's actually coming out and saying, yeah, the numbers didn't make sense, so we're staying where we're at. But certainly he left the door really open that if the Pac-12 can get more money, then that's something they would look at, and that obviously would be a big get for them. And, I know this is football-centric stuff we're talking, but, man, that'd be a good get for the Pac-12. If you got a basketball conference with Gonzaga, San Diego State, and Memphis, not a bad start.
Brett, if they hit the wall again with the AAC, do they start getting a little more creative?
I don't know what they can. I don't. When you say, I mean, that's a good question, but creative. The only creativity smells like bad fish. Yeah. You're gonna have to pull somebody up from the FCS ranks, or you're gonna have to grab somebody from the Sun Belt, or from Conference USA. I mean, pick your team. I'm told Texas State is not under consideration for the Pac-12. Will they go to the Mountain West? that's a possibility. I know there have been discussions. They may be holding out hope they can get in the American, if maybe there's some movement within the American. So, yeah, they can be as creative as they want. They're limited by schools that are available. They're limited by geography. And look, they've got to add a full member to get to 8 full members to qualify as a FBS conference and receive, money from the college football playoff and obviously be eligible for the college football playoff.
I saw a couple of notes that one of the other options might be Tarleton State to the Mountain West. I reached out to their AD. We've had their president, the AD, and football coach on this show, not far from us, of course, in Stephenville. I said, are you getting on the same flight to the Mountain West as UTEP? Heck, I'm in an airport in Salt Lake City headed home from the WAC meetings with ADs and presidents. So, Tarleton just got finished with that transition, but I guess they have to hire or they have to add somebody. Or not? Have you heard anything at all about Tarleton State, or is that just kind of out there?
No, I saw the report. I think, is it a possibility? Yes. Is it the top of their list? No. I think Texas State is the first choice of the Mountain West. And if they can't get that, then maybe they look to Tarleton State, then they look to, some other FCS schools. I also reported that they talked to NIU and Toledo, but that's for football only. And people are probably wondering why in the world the Mountain West want to add 2 schools from the MAC. Well, what it does actually is it gives you the potential to increase their media rights value, because now the Mountain West would, if they pulled that off, they would be the only conference in America that would have, this is crazy, would have 5 schools. They would have schools in 5 different time zones, the 4 in the continental U.S. and Hawaii. That obviously opens up a lot of potential windows for TV networks. Now, look, they're not going to make anything close to what the Power Leagues make. They're currently making about $5 million right now per school. But if by doing this, by adding a NIU and a Toledo, and then whoever they get for that 8th member, if it's Texas State or whoever it is, and now suddenly the deal is worth $7-8 million per school instead of $5 million, then you make that move. You go that route. So that's kind of, we got to see what's going to happen with that if they're going to do that. But I think before they do anything with the football only members, NIU and Toledo, I think they want to solidify who that 8th full member is for the Mountain West. For the Pac-12, I was telling a source, I said, look, if I was your commissioner, what I'd do right now is I would add Gonzaga. This is last week. I said I would go ahead and make it official, add Gonzaga, because now when you go recruit potential teams, football schools to come on board, you can say, hey, part of your deal is first 2 years you're in our conference, Gonzaga will play in your basketball gym, to have a team of Gonzaga's reputation and brand coming into, these non-power school gyms. That's a big deal. So, it's a great move by the Pac-12. And then but how creative they can get if they can't get one of these teams from the American. Yeah, that will be fascinating to see.
So who feels better about who they're going to add right now, the Mountain West or the Pac-12?
Both. It's like, guys, you've heard this. Change all the school names to recruit, and this is what this is. It's 2 schools recruiting for the same kid. If you get the kid, he's the next he's the next Tim Tebow, Joe Burrow. If you miss on the kid, he's a bum. You never wanted him. He's been arrested. It's the same thing with these schools. I think ultimately the Pac-12 would be, if they are able to get teams from the American, they would, on paper, be in a better spot. But this changes year in, year out. Who knows who the hot team's going to be? Like, if I would have told you before the season, if you would have gave me 5 teams to pick on who's going to make the college football playoff from the Group 5, I would have listed 5 teams. You know who I wouldn't have listed? Is James Madison. They can go 12-0 and win the Group 5 thing. So everyone's all hung up on, what are you doing for me now? What have you done for me lately? I don't think it really matters. And the big difference with this compared with the other realignments that we've gone through, you want to obviously get the best product. Like you said, you want to be creative. But guys, dude, the number one priority, you're just survival. You need 8 warm bodies to fill out a lineup, and then you figure things out from there and try to do the best you can.
Brett, from a Big 12 standpoint, obviously they had their dalliances with Gonzaga a couple of different times, if not more, as far as we know, but the UConn thing as well. I was just curious if you'd heard from that side of things, just their feelings on or thoughts on Gonzaga getting scooped up by the Pac-12 and that option seemingly being off the table. It's obviously been quiet over there for a while, which is sort of unusual.
Yeah, I really haven't talked to anybody with the Big 12 specifically about Gonzaga. I mean, they basically, made it clear that they had explored that. They weren't going to do that. I talked to several, sources in the league on the basketball side. And I don't think ultimately that, I think some people were in favor of it. I think enough people weren't in favor of it because, yeah, you can bring Gonzaga on. And yet, my God, I mean, it's just like, Murderers Row just added another murder, and you put them up with Baylor, Kansas City, the list of basketball powers in the league. And then, I think the biggest challenge a lot of people had, when people asked my opinion, I said this. I said, look, I love Gonzaga. The problem is, the challenge is for the Big 12, not for the Pac-12, but for the Big 12, is you've got a school halfway across the country. I know geography doesn't matter. Up in that little left-hand corner of the United States, it's not easy to get to. It's hard to get to. A. B. What happens? Mark Few's not coaching forever.
Right,
I'm not saying he's getting out this year, next year, 5 years from now. But at some point, he will no longer be the coach of Gonzaga. My concern, if I'm wanting to bring them on as a member, does Gonzaga turn into Butler without Brad Stevens? Does Gonzaga turn into Indiana without Bobby Knight? Does Gonzaga turn into Clemson without Dabo Swinney? That would be my concern. And now you're stuck with this school that is not near anybody and that may not be as good as they have been in the past 5, 10, 15 years. So that would be the biggest thing for me. Obviously, the Pac-12, they're all up in that location. That's not as big a deal for them because it makes sense geography-wise. So, yeah, I don't think the Big 12 is like, oh, no, we can't get him now. I mean, look, they can sign with the Pac-12. The Big 12 could go after him tomorrow, and they'd say, we're going to the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the money difference is that's staggering. They would do it, but ultimately, the Big 12 decided, and correctly, I believe, that, Gonzaga just isn't what the Big 12 needs right now. Heck, 5 years from now, who knows what college athletics will look like. Maybe they may turn around and go back at him. If the Big 12 wanted Gonzaga, they could have him. They don't want him right now. Will it always be that way? I can't predict that. But right now, I don't think it's like the Big 12 is like, oh, man, we lost Gonzaga. If they wanted Gonzaga, they would have already had him. If they wanted UConn, they would already have him. They do not want him right now. Will that change in today's landscape? Who knows? But right now, I don't think there's really any tears flowing down the Big 12 face.
Brett, last thing for you, and we appreciate it. I know your phone's blowing up. Is the Big Ten's announcement about the onside kick with Minnesota and Michigan, where they changed the rule, but they did not admit there was a mistake. Why? And there have been some officiating crews who have been reprimanded, but it's just like, and I get it, it's a hard job, but why can't college football get to a point where they're more transparent when there's a mistake made rather than releasing a statement?
I give up. Why? I don't know. I mean, is that the most frustrating thing? Like literally, and I don't want to rail on it, officials, but okay, I'll rail on officials. Why is it that in every walk of life, no matter what you do, if you dig ditches, if you're the president of the United States, if you're a great radio host show, if you host a great radio show in Waco, Texas, anyone and everyone can criticize you or you can get reprimanded for whatever happened, except if you're an official.
Exactly.
It's like, the list of people as far as, okay, untouchable, college football officials number one and the Pope like number two. It is ridiculous. I was hoping you were going to tell me the answer because I've yet to hear what it is.
No, it drives me nuts.
At least
really
the NFL guys have to walk into a room. Now it's only one reporter, but at least they have to talk to a reporter
and answer.
Sure, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and also, by the way, those guys get reprimanded. They get, they don't work the Super Bowl, different things. It's just, look, it's a hard job, but look, we've got replay now. We're paying players millions of dollars. We can't figure out to do a replay to see if somebody is crossed. We can see if a guy's foot's in bounds. Why can't we see if he's crossed the line on a kickoff? And oh, by the way, Michigan would have lost that game if they would have.
No, there you go. If it had been Minnesota on the opposite end of that, they would have probably overturned the call. Craig?
Brett, final thing for me. We knew about the Big Ten and the SEC forming the advisory group and kind of taking the steering wheel, so to speak. There's also, obviously the fears that a lot of schools have out there that they're going to take over everything and leave everybody. But that's reignited now because they're starting to meet again. From your standpoint, like what does this mean long term? Because you know how people are kind of clutching pearls of, is this going to be the death of this conference or that conference? Is this the Super 2? How did you take the I guess roll back around to this joint advisory committee between those two conferences?
Yeah, I don't think it really changes anything. I mean, I think it still can happen. I think ultimately the Big Ten, SEC, if they get to the point, they can say we're going to take our ball and go home. And we're going to create our own playoff with only the teams in our two conferences. We're going to have our own TV deal, and we're going to do whatever the hell we want. And everyone else can go over there and play on the intramural field and figure out what you're going to do. I really believe that those schools don't want to do that. I certainly believe the presidents don't want to do that, which is key. However, a butt was coming. But if the SEC and the Big Ten want to do specific things, like say, hey, guarantee 4 automatic bids to the playoffs, or other things as far as roster, coach limitations, NIL, whatever the laundry list of things that are out there, and basically they're told that they can't do that or they're not allowed to do that, then I think that pushes them off to go do their own thing. I don't think ultimately they want to do that. But look, when you make, we're not kidding anybody. It's the power to and everybody else.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
If they decide they want to do something, there's nothing anybody else can do. Nothing, not a thing. I don't think just because they're formally meeting expedites this or anything. I think it's more just to get in front of each other and kind of discuss things and share ideas. But certainly there's nothing going to come out of these meetings where there's an announcement that, well, they're demanding this, they're demanding that, because ultimately they have to go back to the president to get approval for any of this stuff. But I think it's just better than doing Zooms and a bunch of text chains about a lot of, important topics. But yeah, if you're not part of the Big Ten or the SEC, it's a scary time right now. But that's why, keep in mind the 2026 playoff, we do not know the format yet. We don't know, how that's going to play out. That won't be determined until after this season. So they could recommend that they want to have 4 automatic bids. But again, the 9 conference commissioners plus the Notre Dame AD and the university presidents are the one that have to approve that and vote on that. So I'm sure a lot of reports will come out from those meetings about they want this, they want that. I want to get paid twice as much money as I'm making now, but that doesn't mean I'm going to get paid twice as much. So we'll have to see how that plays out.
Thank you, man. Great to have you on the show. And when you report something, we know it matters. And so you're the insider. We appreciate your time, Brett. Have a great rest of your week. And get a hold of Gundy and get your alma mater's football team going. What's going on?
Are we officially eliminated from the Big 12 title game yet?
No.
We're close. One more.
Yeah. To the wrong teams. Thanks, Brett. Appreciate it. Brett McMurphy, Action Network HQ with us on 365 Sports.
I can just tell everybody, except for Ari. Ari is the only person who gets me. It could be worse.
No, yeah, you know where you're coming from. When we come back, John Teicher, voice of UTEP Athletics on the news today in the Mountain West. He's been broadcasting their games he's over 500 broadcasts of UTEP. He's next. This is 365 Sports. Don Shumador and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center off of Valley Mills and in between Richland Drive and Waco. They have a 48-foot walk-in humidor. Macanudo, Ashton, Rocky Patel, Artur Fuente, Cohiba, Padron, I could go on. But they also have a wall to the right, the back wall to the right, when you walk into the humidor, that has all of these Texas brand cigars. Homegrown. Warfighter out of Church, which is just outside of San Antonio, a combat veteran-owned and operated company. Roma Craft Cigars out of Austin, full, bold flavor cigars. Rojas Cigars out of Richardson, Texas, delicious cigars named after your favorite Mexican food. Smoke a whole enchilada or a breakfast taco. I had some beef enchiladas just a couple of days ago. Also, the Michaela Cigars out of Dallas smoke way above their pay grade. These are some of the names of the cigars on a wall specifically for Texas-owned and military-owned cigars. It's Joshua and Cheyenne in the Town West Shopping Center between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texans are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Some say a dog is a man's best friend. But I tell you what, boys, you better think again. 'Cause there ain't nothing better than some cows, pigs, and turkeys too. I love to cover them in sauce down at Rudy's Barbecue.
Bring all your friends to Rudy's for some tasty oak smoke barbecue.
Next in line.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
News today about UTEP in the Mountain West Conference. Congratulations to them, what they will be doing in a couple of years. And we're joined by the voice of UTEP Athletics, John Teicher, on 365 Sports. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, and I'm David Smoak. John, what does this mean? What does today's news, other than the obvious, mean to UTEP?
Well, I think for much of UTEP's fan base, it means that the Miners are back where they belong. For 40 years, the better part of 40 years, UTEP competed with many of the teams they're going to reunite with in 2 years in the Mountain West Conference. That was back in the old Western Athletic Conference, which when it split in 1998 was 16 schools strong, and 8 of them left to join the Mountain West. The other 8 stayed in the Western Athletic Conference. UTEP remained in the WAC until 2005, when it became obvious that the WAC was going by the wayside, or would go by the wayside, and UTEP went into Conference USA. So again, it takes UTEP back to a time when they competed with a lot of schools that they shared much in common with. UTEP now has been in Conference USA for 20 years. They're the senior member of Conference USA, which means that everyone that UTEP started with in the league 20 years ago has now moved on. So it's a completely different league than it was when UTEP joined 20 years ago. So I think for the Miners and much of its fan base, it feels like a place that they just belong.
How does it feel for travel and all those other things? Because most of your life you spend going east. Now you're not going to have to really do that as much or at all unless you're playing a non-conference game. And these are more natural rivals than playing, say, Liberty or something like that.
Well, much of others' lives have been going east. I've been doing this at UTEP for 44 years. So I started out in the old Western Athletic Conference for a good 20 years or so before we made the move. Actually, more than 20 years, almost 25 before we went to Conference USA. So it returns us to a place of being with schools that are far more in proximity to El Paso or in the Mountain and Pacific time zones, as opposed to in the Central and Eastern time zones. And again, as time has moved along, Conference USA has just continued to extend farther and farther east. Next year, adding Missouri State and the University of Delaware to its conference lineup, with only one other Texas school, that being Sam Houston, still in the league. UTEP has seen SMU and Houston and Rice, UTSA, North Texas, other Texas schools all move on since it joined the league 20 years ago. So again, the proximity is going to be far better for its fans, for its student athletes, and just a lot more comfortable in all.
John, what was it like the last few days, just in terms of how quickly a lot of this came together? And there were so many moving parts, right? I mean, not just for UTEP, but all these various schools and these various conferences are trying to out-jockey each other. So from your standpoint, I guess when the alarms were raised, if you will, of like, hey, it's time, there might be something happening, what was it kind of like as everybody ran to try and get this job done?
Well, I think we all realized that UTEP certainly was a great fit within, whether it be the Pac-12 or the Mountain West Conference, ultimately the Mountain West, and that eventually time was going to take care of things. All the rumors seemed to be elsewhere, with the likes of Northern Illinois and Toledo from the Mid-American Conference. We've heard the possibility of Texas State perhaps still joining the Mountain West, perhaps Tarleton State as well. Things were pretty quiet, at least publicly, with UTEP, but I think those of us that were here in El Paso knew that that talks were happening, and that ultimately something good would come out of them.
Is it hard, as we've seen since really the summer of 21, with Texas, OU, and then it was USC, UCLA, and then, of course, all hell's broken loose with all the other changes, including the various conferences around the country. Is it hard to have to wait to like, okay, this is great, but we still have a year and a half or two before it really hits?
Yeah, that's a good point. And, again, it was a very, very dark day in 1998 when the Western Athletic Conference split in half. And again, most of the schools, in fact, all of the schools that left to form the Mountain West Conference left UTEP behind at that particular time. And it has been a long wait. Again, the move to Conference USA 20 years ago, and to see most of those schools move on as well. UTEP has just had a very, very difficult time forming long-standing rivalries over the last 20 years, and that's a difficult thing to go through in intercollegiate athletics. So this certainly was a good time for UTEP to play ball, and ultimately something good happened for the university and its program.
What do you think this means for recruiting?
I think it's a big boost for recruiting. I think UTEP, football-wise, does a whole lot of recruiting. In fact, the majority of its recruiting, particularly since Scotty Walden took over as head coach this year in its own backyard in the state of Texas. I think many of UTEP's other programs recruit across the country because of the fact that Conference USA stretches as far and wide as it does. I think the focus now will continue to be in Texas, but probably will aim back toward the western part of the United States, California, and Arizona largely with this particular move.
Can you name every team in all of the major conferences around America? And could you even sometimes see yourself doing a game for UTEP and forgetting what conference they're in?
Yeah, and with Conference USA, since it's October, this is the second straight season. We're playing games in October during the middle of the week. We play Thursday this week. We have another Thursday game next week, and then the subsequent 2 weeks we play on a Wednesday and a Tuesday. So a lot of times, certainly during the month of October, you wake up and you don't know exactly what day it is and how things are supposed to proceed in terms of your preparation that particular day. So yeah, absolutely. It's been a bit of a challenge.
You, about a year ago, I think you called your 500th game at UTEP. What was that like? I mean, they just, they're like managers and whoever else and people who hit home runs. It just kind of adds up. You never really look much about it. Then you look up and it's 500 plus. What was that moment like for you, John?
Well, obviously to spend all of your time with one program, although I did do a year at New Mexico State as the voice of the Aggies before I took over at UTEP. It's a great honor. Obviously, you spend a lot of time talking to generations, not just a single generation, but generations of UTEP fans, and that certainly has been a great privilege, honor, and a thrill for me. And it gives me a pretty good historical base when talking about UTEP athletics.
Yeah, and really appreciate it. Thanks to Drew Bonney for hooking us up with you. I got to ask, I heard the phone in the background. Is that a rotary phone? Is that like I haven't heard one of those?
No, it's actually my cell phone with a rotary ringer. Yeah,
that was the only way you were going to get that kind of ring. That's greatness. You and we remember those days, John. I mean, we're proud of that, right?
Those were the good old days, weren't they?
I think I'm going to change mine to that ring. I am. It'll make me feel like I'm 25 or 30 or maybe 50 again. That was awesome. That was awesome. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Congratulations on the news. I know there's a lot still to be done, and things change every day. It just seems like college athletics in many ways, including realignment. Congratulations to you and everybody else with the Miners. Have a great week.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
John Teicher with us. I'm serious. I heard that phone, and I'm thinking, do they still even have those?
I love that you thought that that's what it might be.
Well, I did not know. I haven't heard that ring since Nebraska won a national title in '97.
I think you would have done well with the old,
Oh no!
That one where you just walk up to the wall and
you put it on
operator beach squad 457.
I don't think I ever used one of those crank like on Hogan's Heroes or something like that or MASH. I didn't use those.
Honestly, I gotta say something. I can't help but when I do that, to do that voice, that's how everybody spoke in the 1940s.
Oh yeah, it's a whole bit on the ticket.
Yeah.
You've heard that, right? 1920s reporter guy, and he just talks like that every time he does.
Yeah.
I've seen others try to kind of rip off that bit now here lately, but
I'm changing my ring.
Matter of fact, I seem to remember somebody trying to pull that in a Baylor press conference like a year or two ago.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah, trying to do the whole shtick there. But when the ticket did it with Shaquille O'Neal on the receiving end of it 12, 15 years ago, it was pretty hilarious. And yeah, that's the stereotype voice.
I think they did it with Mike Tyson one time too.
Because
he kept going, "Hey champ, hey champ."
Champ is always a big word. Hey champ,
yeah. Barry Crawford, Smokey, Paul Craig, the military field phone, the TA-312 is still just like the one from MASH.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I did not know that. Sir, blah blah blah. You just told me you were 39. No, I'm 65. And then some laughing. I heard that. I actually was wondering, is there really a phone is there one still alive?
Well, yeah. Don't be silly. Of course there's phones still out there operating.
Our great friend Butch Henry.
Rotary phones, no, because it's pulse dialing now. So you don't have a rotary phone.
The worst thing that ever happened when they got away from a dial tone like drum is broadcasters who went to do football games, and you know this, we used to be able to just stick a phone line, a cord into the wall, and you'd get a dial tone, you're good to go. That ended. That's been kind of washed out over the last 10 or 15 years.
I had to go, where I live, the cable's already built in, so I don't have all these options of I'm going to go get YouTube TV and all this stuff, right? Unless I just wanted to pay more money for no real reason. So I'm kind of stuck with it, but I did have to go turn in equipment today, actually, because now it's going to be Wi-Fi driven rather than cable driven, and I was out of date with my equipment. So I'm sure that won't cause any problems when it rains.
And they made you come to them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
yeah. They couldn't just come and pick it up.
No, why? They're so busy.
Our thing's out of date, but so get off your ass and come here.
So what's the name of that on the ringtone? What would that be?
Hold on,
classic or something.
Here I'll tell you.
Okay, I have Rocket Man, Elton John.
Yeah, that's definitely not that.
I don't see classic.
Well, I don't know that's it for sure. I'm saying that's probably where you would find it. Would be under.
Let's see. I don't see it.
This is compelling.
This is
radio.
People are gonna love this.
Edge of my seat. Ringtone talk.
No, that's not it.
All right, coming up next, we got Off the Radar, where I'll be talking about some college football ratings.
There it is.
There you go.
Under old phone.
I'm so happy you found it.
I found it now. Look, there's a duck. As we're driving a boat down the river. When we come back, Craig Smoak Off the Radar, just around the corner at 5, former Iowa State quarterback Dave Archer. Lots to get to, and this is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. The fastest growing pizza brand in America. 5 locations in Waco, and it wasn't that long ago there were none. There was pizza places, and Bob Mock has worked in the pizza business for a long, long time, and now has 5 locations in Waco, in Hewitt and Woodway, also in Robinson, China Spring, and in Belmead. I saw Bob the other day. He does a lot of work on game days inside McLean Stadium. He's really, really good at what he does, including running those 5 stores, but also understands the pizza business. And Marco's Pizza, go online, marcos.com, and you can get what you want when it comes to discounts, codes, from what I told you about now, which is like the double, triple Kazam of pepperoni and also Italian sausage loaded up. I still like thin crust pizza, always have. It's a little crispier for me. So I don't know how much of that pepperoni and Italian sausage they could put on my pizza pie or the crust. But they have that. Wings, salads, sandwiches. They have soft drinks and more. You want one, you call them or go online. You could pick it up. They can deliver. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year, it's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
All right, welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports, Tuesdays and Thursdays at around 4:45, and here we are, right about, right on the dot, actually. So got a few different things to talk about today. And I guess let's go ahead and start with what was a pretty monumental story yesterday, and I didn't know if we were going to get around to it or not, but the death of Pete Rose happened while we were on the air, or was that afterwards yesterday?
Right as we got off.
I thought it was pretty bang, but former Major League Baseball star Pete Rose passed away yesterday. The cause of death, according to Clark County Coroner's Office, was hypertensive and atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. He also had diabetes mellitus, but the manner of death was ruled natural. He was 83 years old and played in Major League Baseball from 1963 to 1986, was a member of the Big Red Machine, the dominant Reds of the 70s, 17-time All-Star, played on 3 World Series championship clubs, National League MVP in 1973, World Series MVP in 1975. Everything but a Hall of Fame nod for Pete Rose, and we know why that was, because of obviously the gambling side of things, that he's become basically the face of gambling in American sports, quite frankly, even though the Black Sox probably had that title right before that, and maybe boxing promoters at some point in time as well. But that's kind of how I knew him, guys, because I wasn't old enough to watch him when he was actually playing, and we didn't have YouTube when I was growing up, so the clips that I saw were very hit or miss. I always heard how great he was. I came to learn how great he was. But to me, he was a guy on WWE getting chokeslammed by Kane, the Baseball Hall of Famer, which happened a couple of different times. But y'all's thoughts, I mean, both big baseball fans, both know your history, and you both know how great Pete Rose was, but also know the other side of it that people had a hard time dealing with. But your thoughts on his passing?
I saw a lot of people like, hey, put him in the Hall of Fame already, do this, that, all of that. Okay, I get that, like, the all-time hits leader should be in the Hall of Fame. But what Pete Rose did, and this is where, to me, he completely indicted himself, because I believe that Shoeless Joe Jackson belongs in the Hall of Fame. But Shoeless Joe, he took his medicine and, did that. And there was also no evidence that he did anything to throw the game. He just knew about it. He was essentially paid for his silence. But with Pete Rose, he lied about it for 20 years. I didn't do it. I never bet on baseball. I was always betting on football or basketball or other things, boxing. I never bet on baseball. Then he's got a book come out. He needs to sell the book. He does an interview with Jim Gray and is like, hey, or maybe, I guess Jim Gray was the one that he did where he got cheered and then booed or whatever. Mm-hmm. And people kind of got on his side. So I think he had a lot of people on his side for getting in the Hall of Fame. And then And then just this interview, I think on 60 Minutes, where he's like, yeah, no, I totally did it. I did, but I always bet on my team to win and all that. Like, dude, we were behind you. Like, if you had just said 20 years ago, hey, yeah, I did it. I did. I've got a gambling addiction or whatever. Like, this is the thing I like to do. But no, you lied and lied and lied and lied about it. So then you use up all your sympathy for it. Like, okay, well, I was behind you because I believed you. And you kept saying they never had any evidence, which clearly they had some to think that you did. And, yeah, so he was a complicated individual for sure.
He was a hell of a hitter. He was the guy you ran over, Ray Fosse at an all-star game and knocked him out. He was unbelievably competitive. Old school, no question. Most old school baseball fans, unless they just hated Pete Rose, feel like he should be a part of the Hall of Fame. He did something that gets you banned from Major League Baseball. Jason Stark wrote an article today on theathletic.com. He said, I've said this and many times, Pete Rose was the saddest baseball story I ever covered. And then he went on to explain why, because he statistically has earned his way through the Hall of Fame. But, as Paul said, he just never. Here's another thing. I still wonder about those who are not a part of a Hall of Fame, like even the steroid era. Would it hurt baseball if they had a wing or they had the plaque of Pete Rose or of Alex Rodriguez or Mark McGuire and Barry Bonds, if they just did not make a notation about what happened during their career? And yet again, then you're still honoring them. Someone brought this up to me in an email, a direct message last night. Well, they should now put him in the Hall of Fame. That would probably be the most cruel thing you could ever do.
Yeah, no.
No, he's dead now. Let's put him in the Hall of Fame where he can enjoy it.
Yeah, we've talked about every time we talk about the Hall of Fame, I think they should redo the whole way that they do it because I think there's too many people with agendas in there. And I don't understand why a guy, I'll use Jim Rice as an example. Jim Rice wasn't a Hall of Famer for 30 years, then all of a sudden he was. Well, no, he was a Hall of Famer. When he retired, he's one of the best players of his era.
Yeah.
Like, those kind of things need to, you need to have a different perspective on it. They can't do anything to all of a sudden be a Hall of Famer. Now, if you say we're only going to take 4 or 5 a year, then do that.
Well, why does there have to be a number? I know that, Barry Crawford, with the line of the chat, Pete Rose had a lifetime ban. His lifetime is up. Add him to the Hall of Fame.
Well, it's interesting. There was a photo taken of Pete Rose yesterday at a card show. But that's how a lot of these old-timers.
I think, Garrett, you have that, right? Yeah.
A lot of these old-timers make their living after ball is going to these card shows and doing events like that. And here he was. This was yesterday with former teammates Dave Concepcion, George Foster, Tony Perez, and Ken Griffey Sr. And the guy who posted this, underneath, there's a guy named Greg Payne. At Greg_Payne24. And he posted underneath this, I was there yesterday. I asked, how are you feeling, Pete? He paused and said, I'm okay. I've met Pete several times, and he looked tired yesterday, and he had a picture of him signing autographs.
Yeah.
So, a little bit of hindsight clarity there. But, an incredible career. Obviously, there's, for some people, always going to be an asterisk. For some people, burn the asterisk and give him his just due or whatever. I don't think anybody's denying he's one of the greatest of all time to do what he did, though, right? I mean, he's one of the greatest hitters, if not the greatest hitter of all time.
Yeah, he's in that category with Tony Gwynn.
And it's just a matter of perspective on how you want to remember him as the guy who gambled and ruined the sanctity of baseball, or the guy who was one of the best players that baseball has ever seen.
I meant to say best contact hitters. He had some power, but he was a slap hitter, could push it, switch hitter, 4,000 plus hits is an amazing accomplishment, but there are rules.
Yeah, well, here's a couple of other baseball notes that I'll tie in real quick since we're already talking about the game. Paul passed this along. The pitch clock. What did y'all think about watching the pitch clock? I actually enjoy it because it does make the game go by faster. I think that's undeniable, and I'm about to tell you that there's other changes that it creates as well, but are you yay, nay on the pitch clock?
I found myself much more engaged in games because of the lack of these nauseating at times delays. I know there's a part of the game, but I loved the pitch. I didn't know if I'd like it, but I do like it.
Look, as a person who had to watch a lot of Josh Beckett starts where he was like, he would just wait and wait. You'd even see like Jason Varitek behind the plate going like, buddy.
Yeah.
Like, I told you to throw a curveball 4 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Well, the final stats from Bob Nightingale, who covers MLB, he said, revealing how the pitch clock has dramatically changed the game, 3,617 stolen bases in the regular season. That was the most since 1915. So over 100 years since baseball's seen that many stolen bases. And 2 hours, 36 minutes, the average time of 9-inning games this year. That was the quickest since 1984. So it worked. It's working. I mean, that's 40 years you've had games go on average longer than that. 40 seasons worth. And so this was the quickest per average 9-inning game since 1984. And again, an abundance of stolen bases as well.
It gave us, that's the reason, that was the reason I really like it, is the new rules have given us back the stolen base that was absent for a decade, or maybe even more, where, with just endless throws over to first base, it was crazy when it happened. You're like, oh my God, this person stole a base. Ohtani almost had 60 this year.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So, yeah.
You got 50-50 guys now.
Yeah, you got a 50-50 guy now. It's better. Thank you, baseball, for finally picking up what we were putting down.
Yeah, no doubt. So that was an example of how it's worked pretty effectively. Go ahead.
No, I wanted – Barry Crawford made a question. Brought this up back to the Rose in the Hall of Fame. Reggie Bush was stripped of the Heisman Trophy. Then we decided to ignore the rules and put him back in. What's the difference in possibly adding Rose now?
I don't think I don't know because I can't speak for the people that are holding him out. I think that your average baseball Hall of Fame voter and writers and guys like that are far crabbier than college football writers, and college football writers kind of love chaos. I think that would be fair to say. Like, the sloppier, the better, because it's just more fun to talk about. I feel like that's why there's all these kooky tales that are, talked about throughout college football, and it's embraced. If anything, when guys are cheating, it's embraced. When guys are doing whatever to get whatever, it's embraced. Whereas in baseball, like, they very much are prickly.
Man, there's some old grumpy.
And there's and the thing is too is like baseball writers, they really do need to shake up the committee, because there's people that absolutely don't deserve a vote, and there's guys who are so bitter that a guy mistreated them at a locker that, if he got 99 out of a possible 100 votes, you'd be the guy to not give him the 100s, even though he deserves it, because he pissed you off at a locker one. Like, that's baseball writers.
That's exactly
so that's why they'll never. They want to pretend like the game's all immaculate and clean, even though they were enjoying it when McGuire and Sosa and Bonds were all doing their thing, and they're probably selling more papers than they've ever sold since. Mm-hmm. But that's baseball writers. So
yeah, and I agree with you. And some of them they take it seriously. That's great, but they have an agenda, and you see that with the Heisman Trophy, with regionality sometimes too. That's why they're trying to bring in new blood across the board in many of these awards.
All right, so the Major League Baseball playoffs have started. It's my last baseball note, but I just wanted to wrap around. And in the final of the day so far, there's a 4-game slate, 2 games in progress, 1 game finished, 1 game later on tonight. But in the finished contest down in Houston, the Detroit Tigers, what a story they've been. Winners at Minute Maid Park in Game 1 of the AL Wild Card. 3-1 Tigers over the Astros. The final there in progress now. You've got the Royals up 1-0 on the Orioles in the other AL Wild Card game. And then over in the NL Wild Card, the first contest underway. Brewers at home up 2-0 on the Mets. That's in the second inning. The Royals-Orioles, that's bottom 8. So that one's a little tight, low-scoring affair. And then later on tonight, 7:30 on ESPN, national broadcast for the second NL wildcard, Braves at the Padres. So that's all coming up your way now and later on tonight as well. Dude, I got my World Series last year. I said that's right. I got my World Series last year. It made me not care nearly as much about baseball this year, because it was like having a full meal and then driving by a bunch of restaurants. Like, I'm not hungry. Like, I don't need anything. But any sort of rooting favorites here, or storylines that you are paying attention to when it comes to the MLB postseason?
I would be lying if I didn't say that I hope that the Tigers shock the Astros.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Because it's a rivalry. like Red Sox, Yankees. It's not that historic.
No.
But,
I actually do have one. Just anything but the Astros. Just anybody but the Astros win a World Series.
I wasn't following that game. I know John McClain was at that game. He'll join us in 30 minutes or so. He's going to be pissed off at the world.
I can't believe the Tigers made the playoffs with 2 good hitters on their team. They have a bunch of 200 hitters on that team. And they have Matt Verling and Riley Green, who's really good.
Green plays what position?
He's an outfielder. So the Matt Verling plays third base. But they have 2
They
good
got
hitters.
Scrubel or whatever the guy is.
Scubel. He's fantastic. He's Tarek Scubel. He's great. So, yeah, he pitched today, 6 shutout innings.
So there you go. We got baseball going on right now. 2 games in progress. One about to end. One just started, and then another one later on tonight. Just a couple more notes here. Don't have the full picture of the college football TV ratings for this week, but can say without a doubt that the big winner was Georgia and Alabama. 11.99 million viewers on ABC was the tally for that one. Flat, I think they rounded it up on the ESPN graphic to 12. Just why not? It rounds up. Most watched regular season primetime game on any network since 2017. Most streamed regular season college football game on record for ESPN specifically ever. And at its peak had 14.1 million viewers. So, yeah, big, fat 12 rating, which is like a regular, 11 o'clock kick in the NFL, but it's a huge rating in college football. So, yeah, most streamed ESPN game college football-wise on record. Most watched prime times any network since 2017. And that's a pretty healthy number, 12 million, topping out at 14.1. That was by far the biggest game this weekend.
What was Texas-Michigan, 9 million?
Yeah.
And it still then blows my mind that Ohio State-Michigan last November was in that 15 or 18 million range. Now, again, it was an early – I think that was an early morning game. Normally is. And there was a lot on the line, of course, in that game. 2 massive fan bases. But I tell you what, I was one of them. That 11,999,000, whatever, I was one of them.
And I don't know how it ebbed and flowed as that game went from the first half to the second half, but I'd imagine at its peak it was 14, so that was probably later in the second half or at least at the very beginning of that game. But, yeah, that was clearly the winner. Second most watched game of the week was Oklahoma and Auburn. Had just over 5 million viewers for the Sooners' big win over the Auburn Tigers. That was also part of ABC, ESPN, and I want to say, was that just over? Okay, so I think the third most watched game, if I'm reading this correctly, because not all the information's out, but I do believe, as of right now, from the information we have, the third most watched game by a nose hair was Colorado UCF, which pulled in a little over 4 million viewers, up huge from the Big 12 average, over almost half of the Big 12 average on Fox last year. So there's the Dion effect, pulling in just over 4 million. And then you also had over on ABC, ESPN, about 4 for Kentucky and Ole Miss. So SEC, ESPN, ABC is doing really, really well, as you might imagine. But that Colorado draw is big money right now for Fox and for the Big 12 Conference as a whole. So there you go. There's just a few of the ratings from this past weekend. I might get a little bit more in depth. But this is why you want Colorado to do well, unless you just hate Dion and company. But if you're doing the whole toe the Big 12 line, you need Dion in this conference, man, because he makes a difference for you.
Makes 3 or 4 million every time they play. And if they keep winning, it will just get larger and larger. Yep.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So was that it? Is that all I had today? Oh, yeah, Devontae Adams is requesting a trade once again. Raiders wide receiver has let it be known that he's now, I guess, back in wanting to be traded. So we'll see where that goes. The Raiders are apparently open to it, according to various sources that are out there, including ESPN. So how about the Chiefs?
Yeah, I don't think
the Raiders going to do that. I would hope not, but that just seems like how the NFL works. So let me go to the typically the most obvious question, which now has become, well, what about the Chiefs? What about the Cowboys? How about Devontae Adams on the Cowboys?
I saw Dan Orlovsky tweet it earlier, and I tweeted back, or I quoted it and said, congratulations, Devontae. You're the 100,000th player to be linked to the Cowboys with no chance of it happening. You win a free 25% bump in the media cycle. I don't think it's going – it would make sense for them to do it, given they're not very explosive on offense, and if you put CeeDee and Devontae on the same field at the same time,
they'll have the worst cat fight ever.
I think they're going to fun. But I did. I reached out to an inside Raiders source today as well.
You called Antonio Pierce.
I did not.
You called Q.
I did. I called Q because I wanted to, like, some of this stuff gets on ESPN, like Brandon Ayuk, and and then it's really just Brandon Ayuk was in his feelings and all that. No, Antonio Pierce and Devontae are not getting along. It's just, it would be better for, like, this isn't totally like a TO situation or anything like that. It would just be better for both parties if Devontae was traded. He could go to a team with a quarterback. Why
would he not go to the Jets?
Well, that's actually one of the big rumors is him going to reunite with Aaron Rodgers.
Because of Rodgers. If I were him, because I think Rodgers is a little bit, and the Jets offense is a little bit blah, I would say send me to Josh Allen. But I don't know if the Bills can make it happen.
They already got rid of a diva.
But I don't think Devontae's really that kind of a diva. Like, I think
any good wide receiver
is a bit. Yeah.
No, not every good wide receiver.
I think he's
CD a diva?
Not in the same way, but like they all have it.
I mean, compared to like Antonio Brown and like the worst case scenarios, those guys are not close.
He's bad. You know what?
But I would, if I want to win a Super Bowl, I'm 32 years old, I'm Devontae Adams. I'm not going to the Jets this year because that's not going to happen. I want to be with the Bills or someone like the Ravens.
Is he still a high elite level wide receiver?
Yeah, but he's been playing with bad quarterbacks for the last couple of years.
Also at that age where it can kind of change,
Yeah, so could capitalize now.
Yeah, that is in the works. We'll see where Devontae Adams ends up, but it's not going to be Las Vegas for the long term. One more note, Bills Von Miller suspended 4 games for violating the league's policy basically on personal conduct, I think is the official title, the personal conduct policy. So he will be eligible to return on October the 28th when the Bills play the Seahawks in week number 8. But I'll just leave it there because I know we have some guests coming up, and I've got the note on ESPN's insiders and how they're shaking up that with the retirement of Adrian Wojnarowski, but I'll save that when we have some more time on Thursday because I do find that interesting and worth unpacking a little bit, but no time here, so there you go. There's a few things off the radar.
Can I read an email about, Craig, your take yesterday on Baylor?
Sure.
All right, this is from a viewer. I saw and heard Craig's take and your support on his thoughts. I'm proud of you guys. The nice enabling media is not the best interest of Baylor athletics. Maybe I'm wrong, but it appears they're actually trying to force you guys to placate them by not working to answer your questions, including you guys because you're not playing their game. I find this disturbing. Keep up the good work. Keep up what you say without any need for an opinion. I know you don't need mine. I was relieved to hear Craig's take. It mirrored my own. Keep it up. Don't worry about the support by speaking up. You have it more than ever.
Yeah, one thing I'm not worried about is placating anybody, and I do that to my own detriment, but that's just who I am and who I'll always be. So stubborn and stupid maybe, but I don't have to worry about me placating anybody. I'm just going to say how I feel. And keep it like respectful, but
sure.
I'm not going to not say what's obvious and do it so that I can get a job someday or something like that over at Baylor. That's not what I'm gearing for. So yeah, I saw that get posted on the message boards, and I have not gone to look because I don't know how it's taken. But yeah, hopefully some people got some catharsis from that, like I did.
Your pop on Monday's show, it was actually put up as a thread. It's been a really, really entertaining to kind of watch that.
I had lunch with a friend today, and he had seen it, and he said everything that Baylor has done this year, like is the opposite way of how they should have been doing it from a football perspective, especially public relations wise.
But is that from the head coach?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's
if the head coach doesn't or won't do something. Again, I saw where Bryce Cherry put something up Saturday night about who they had in the post game. With all due respect to who was in the post game, and like today, finally Sawyer Robertson talked.
Yeah, and he hasn't talked, and well, I understand that to some extent because you didn't know if he was really the starter or not. But it's pretty clear he's a starter, so now he's talking, and
in the depth chart it doesn't say or.
Yeah, so he's very clearly the guy now. He's earned that, and I don't know. DeQuan Finn's not available anyways, so it's Sawyer's team now, and we'll see what he does with it. He did. That last interception was a bad interception though. Like you can't throw that with a minute on the clock and approaching midfield, and you've got 2-3 downs to go. If not, move the chains again, and you throw up a pick on the sideline that ends the game like that. Like that's something he can't do. Because it might have cost them that game, but then again, they had 3 opportunities before that.
He's
down
the reason
6.
they also got.
No,
back
he's
in
the only
game.
reason they were even in the game.
Yeah.
So, I'm not blaming him too much, but that's just something that, like, if you're going to critique the other night, then, like, yeah, everything was really good, but that you can't throw that football in that situation and get it picked off with that much time left on the clock down 6. But other than that, yeah, he's earned the job, and we'll see what he can do with it, moving forward.
Baylor had punted, then they turned it over on downs in the second half as they slowly were chipping away at the BYU lead. Then they cut it to 6, and then they punted. They turned it over on downs and threw an interception. So They had 3 opportunities, including after the BYU interception and Noel with the pick, not 6, but the pick and then the toss to a teammate. One note, Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, one of our Baylor sponsors for our Baylor segments. I want to throw this out there. He didn't ask me to. Lance Aldridge, who runs their marketing, his son, Parker, is in a club sport and with Baylor's water ski team. I didn't even know this existed, and they are on their way to the Nationals for the first time in 25 years. These club teams that you have, volleyball, baseball, whatever, these are good players, athletes, and so I wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, I was over at Richard Carr earlier today because my car needs some work after, what do they call it, a gremlin in the road? I think is the slang for like an old tire.
Gremlin, it would not hurt, yeah.
But there's an old 18-wheeler tire that had popped off some semi and couldn't avoid it and messed up my front part of the car pretty good. So I was over at Richard Carr, and they're hooking me up. So if you need any work done, like, they make it simple and easy. And thanks to Donnie and everybody over there for helping me out again. It's like, I was like, I hate to keep running into you guys like this, but every time I see you, I need work on my car done.
Yeah.
But they're taking care of it. So
everybody that's watching, and you have so now there's a deductible. Then you got everyone that's watching. About the time you start to accumulate money, your air conditioning system goes out, or the house air conditioning goes out, or in Paul's case, you have leaks all over the house. It's unbelievable the timing of that. Hey, I got an extra $1,500. And then something like that costs $2 or $3 grand
Look,
seems to always happen.
I walk into my house every day and like ask it, like, don't F with me today.
Mm-hmm.
I just say to the house.
You say that to Amanda?
No, I say to the house. To the house, don't F with me today.
Yeah. By the way, from Bobby B, I agree that take from Craig was cathartic. And so thank you very much. When we come back, he's the voice. Well, he's part of the Atlanta Falcons broadcast team, the NFL, former Iowa State quarterback. He did work with the Alabama-Georgia game for Compass Radio. Dave Archer is next. This is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe. So we have 3 of these little sheets that are passed out every day. One on Paul's desk, one on my desk, and on Craig's desk. And I keep having to look at theirs, and it's right here in front of me. Pioneer Steel and Pipe. Man, what a place. Just on the east side of I-35 and Loop 340 and Highway 6 in Waco, Pioneer Steel and Pipe, 1943. Pipe, steel, metal. If you are of interest in building anything, really, whether it's commercial or real estate, if you like or you're interested in a metal building, which became a hot thing a few years back, they are phenomenal at what you need, and they have what you need as far as the product. And they also know the contractors that you can contact that they know won't slow things down. Not just because weather delays or whatever, that they're just not going to it's not going to be like gum on your shoe. They know the contractors that will get it done. The contractors that will get it done so they can then do their next project, or maybe even have many of them going on at one time, and they can handle it and they can juggle all of the demands and also the responsibilities. Great family of people who have been working there since 1943. Customers who have been there generation after generation, keep going back. It's one thing in anything you sell, for anybody that watches this show, sell it to a customer. Will they come back and buy you again, or what you have again? That is the test of time. Pioneer Steel and Pipe, Loop 340, Highway 6, east of 35 in Waco, pioneerboys.com.
When it comes to me and my money, I know the way it should be. I need a partner I can count on. That's Genco and me. Genco is my credit union. They're always there for me. They're people I trust. They treat me like family. My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Bambi SQ, what is the number one reason or two or three reasons, Bambi, that people should contact House of Travel?
As a travel agency local here in Waco, we can take care of all your bookings, your payments, answer your questions, help you when there are issues or problems, things that may come up that you don't know what to do or how to fix them. People don't realize we don't charge a fee for what we do. It doesn't cost you extra to use a travel agent. We're just here. We get paid by the tour companies and the cruise lines to represent them. But you have an expert on your side that's here and local, and you have a name and a face to put together to help you with anything that you may need. Give us a call. We can price things for you. We can help you answer questions. We can make it simple, easy, and one stop.
Your knowledge of all the years you've done this and then spit it back to them or give them options?
Helps us to kind of know a date range, a budget, what your goals are and what you want to see and do on your vacation. And then that helps us to know what to look for, and we can narrow down and help you make the best choices for your vacation so you get the best value. You get exactly what you were hoping for, and making sure that it's taken care of with a carefree, easy, simple for you type vacation. I've been doing this for over 40 years. Every day I learn something new. I experience new situations and things that I can help take care of for people, whether it's just making sure you get the best deals and find the best vacations, or whether it's to solve that problem like you've got a flight that's being canceled and you don't know what to do. There's weather coming up. Should I cancel my trip next week because of the hurricane? Those are things that we take care of and you don't have to worry about. You've got somebody that you can rely on that you know is an expert, knows what we're doing, have been doing this for a long time, so that you're not questioning, okay, does the person on the other end of the phone really understand what I'm asking or know how to find those deals? You've got an expert, and we are here to take care of that.
For more information, go to houseoftravelwaco.com. Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Dave Archer, Iowa State, NFL Falcons, also does Falcons radio, and Compass Radio did the Alabama-Georgia game. We'll get to all of that. And he joins Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, David Smoak on 365 Sports. Great to hear from you, Dave. Glad that you're doing really, really well. So, you did Alabama, Georgia. We talked about that, but let's start with your Cyclones.
Okay.
Methodical, efficient. Sometimes, like the game with Houston, they were playing with their food for a little bit, but Houston wasn't going to score on them. But your thoughts about Becht and Matt Campbell, and here we are. You look up and they're in the top 20.
Yeah, the bread's buttered for Iowa State and has been, Smokey. And good to be with you, man. Really
You
good
too.
to hear your voice, stuff like that. It's been a few months since we've had a chance to visit, so great to hear your voice. But good to be on with you guys. Really excited about what's going on with Matt Campbell and his crew. Certainly, the bread's buttered on the defensive side of the football. John Haycock and what they do, that kind of sets the tone for what Iowa State's going to be. They want to be physical, and they want to be disciplined, and they want to tackle and those kind of things. And all those things have come to life as far as that side of the football. And then on the other side, Smokey, you know as well as I do, it's a young crew with a young quarterback. They've got a young running back in Abu Sama. The transfer has done a nice job of fitting in with Sama there, and then they got a couple receivers, and Jalen Knoll is an older guy, and Jaden Higgins is an older guy that can go get the football. Benjamin Brahmer, who I think is arguably one of the best tight ends in the country. I think he's a big-time player that's going to play at the next level. And so they've got both sides of the ball playing, as you said, efficient football. You'd like to see them be a little bit more explosive on the offensive side of the ball, but it kind of fits who they are, being taking care of the football, not turning it over. and then making it really hard for you to get the ball in the end zone. And that's what they've been here in the first 5 games.
Dave, is this like the most Matt Campbell team that he's ever Matt Campbelled when it's efficient? Like, it's just efficient on both sides. There's nothing particularly spectacular. It's efficient.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's fair to say. I think that, when you think about Matt and the way he talks to his players, the way he talks to the media, he talks about, doing things the right way. And that starts when they're in their off season in what they do to get themselves ready to play, the commitment to the program, and then what they're doing with their weightlifting and their strength and conditioning programs. And then what they do from an efficiency standpoint in practice, working on the tackling, making sure, they're leveraging the tackler. They got an outside guy. They got an inside guy, got a guy over the top, when it comes to that. And then making sure they're not penalized a significant amount on the offensive side of the football. Don't hurt yourselves. You're going to go station to station offensively. Now, they've done some things that have been explosive, certainly getting back into that Iowa game in week 2 where they made the explosive plays. Jalen Noel gets in behind the Hawkeyes in the passing game, and Rocco finds him. They needed some of those kind of themselves back in the game. So they do have some potential explosiveness. We saw a little bit of it in the K-State game last year at the end of the season where Abu Sama went off in the run game, and they were able to make some explosive plays. I think they'd like to see more of that. That would make life a lot easier, certainly on their defensive side of the football, and make life a lot easier as far as it's concerned. But, yeah, I think that's fair to say. There's no question that they've been kind of played the script as far as Iowa State is concerned.
So this is the second full year of Rocco Becht. What do you see from him in these first handful of games that is a growth or just something noticeable from seeing him quite a bit last year?
Well, I just think that his growth has come in understanding what teams are trying to do to him. He certainly understands the 2 guys that he throws the football to, and I think, again, the Benjamin Brahmer element, that him blossoming into a legitimate weapon for Becht. I think he understands, and that's something from a quarterback perspective, is what are guys doing for you? What can guys provide for you? And sometimes there's trial and error there. You're going to put a guy up to bat on a certain play. That might not be his strength, whereas other guys, you can put a guy up to bat in a 50-50 situation. Jaden Higgins has kind of turned into that guy. Jalen Noel is more of that shake guy, the guy that you're going to get an option routes and get him the football in that regard. So I think that him learning his personnel has been maybe his biggest growth. Taking care of the football is something that always has to be something that's in the toolbox of a quarterback. And I think young quarterbacks have to learn, what can I get away with? He's got a big arm. So what windows do I squeeze it into? I also have to play to the strengths of what I've got defensively. Do I put my defense in bad situations? Do I provide short field opportunities for the opposition? Those are things that Rocco, I think, has learned as he's moved through. He made some of those mistakes early on in 2023, and it cost him some games. They got off to a slow start in 23. That began to change, and he began to blossom as a player that understood the grand scheme of things, the 30,000-foot level look at what's going on in the game. I think those are the things that he's improved in the most.
Dave, I got a question for you. And by the way, somebody in the chat brought up they loved you when you were playing in Canada.
It was fun. I mean, boy, we had a lot of fun. I appreciate that. That's very kind of whoever sent that in. I enjoyed playing up there. And I said in a number of interviews, Smokey, that I think that if you could get rid of the tradition, which you can't, and we don't want to get rid of the tradition of the game. The way the game is played in Canada, I think, fits the fans' set of criteria. Big plays, scoring, the ball's in the air a great deal. You mix in the run game. There's a lot of plays made in special teams up there. So, and they treat the game up there like the college game in the United States. Canada really, they paint the faces. There's banners waving. They love their game in Canada, and I had a lot of fun playing up there.
Sir blah, 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 by the way, on the chat room is the one that
not surprised
brought that up. So with the way the Big 12, BYU is better than anyone thought, maybe other than the people inside the locker room and the coaching staff. We've seen Tech win games early because they had struggled doing that and then they would make a run late. KU is like a mess. Kansas State with a bounce back. Oklahoma State, who are they? Utah lost to Arizona. You know where I'm going with this. There are teams that have kind of risen to the top, and yet there's, as usual, chaos in a lot of different ways. Is this just going to be the way it's always been in the Big 12 occasionally, other than Oklahoma when they used to dominate?
Well, I don't think there's any question about that, Smokey. I think that everybody is still in the mix. I mean, you can go all the way down the list. I know Baylor is going to head to Iowa State on Saturday, or certainly Friday, and play Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they're still searching for some certain things, identities, and things that are going on both sides of the football. But at 2-3, and I know they're 0-2 in conference play. But as soon as you discount the Bears, then they're going to jump up and bite you. Oklahoma State, we know there's talent on that football team. They haven't played very well on the defensive side of the football. They haven't tackled well. They've given plays up over the top. Certainly, they were destroyed in Manhattan this last weekend, but you could see them bounce back. I mean, think about their comeback against Arkansas to win that football game in a non-conference game. TCU has shown some life. I think their quarterback is a gunslinger. I think that Hoover is a guy that can light you up. So, yeah, I mean, Utah is playing without their quarterback. We don't know if he's ever going to get back. Is Cam Rising done? We have no idea. So there's so much uncertainty, and then all of a sudden you look up and everybody kind of left Colorado for dead because of the way the thing started and the way they got destroyed by Nebraska. You look up and they go on and win a game on the road against UCF, in a game that you didn't feel like maybe they had a chance to win. So, yeah, I think it's wide open. I love the development of Baron Morton and what's going on in Lubbock with him. We felt like that he had some of those innate abilities to be one of those guys that's kind of special at the quarterback position. He's certainly done that. BYU much better on the defensive side of the football this year than they were a year ago. The development of Ratzlaff at quarterback, man, it's wide open, Smokey. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been fun. I did not expect. It's not Colorado winning, although that was a surprise. Just they dominated that game, and they looked like they had other levels of what they could do. Obviously, Arizona popped up with Fafita. You kind of forget about what he can do. It's just, by the way, Dave Archer played with the Falcons, played with other teams in the NFL. You went undrafted out of Iowa State. You waited a year, marinated, and then you played like 28 or some games the next 2 years. They don't do that as much anymore. Caleb Williams playing right away. Jaden Daniels playing right away. Rookie quarterbacks play right away. What was it like to be able to just watch the game and then have a chance to soak it in that first year?
Yeah, I had a chance to sit behind one of the really good veteran players in Steve Bartkowski. He was the number one overall pick in 1975 from out of California, went to the Atlanta Falcons, and he had to play right away. And he went through, and I had a chance to sit and visit with him and some of the things that he went through as a franchise guy, as a guy that everybody in the city was looking to kind of rescue a team that really hadn't had any success at all in Atlanta. And he gradually worked into the position, had to make some mistakes and all those kind of things. Now, the opportunity for me to sit and watch that was beneficial. And I don't know that there's a perfect answer to whether you throw a guy in like a Matt Ryan, who came in here and hit the ground running. His first pass as an Atlanta Falcon went for a 62-yard touchdown, or whether you get the guys that really floundered, like a Joey Harrington or even to a certain extent Marcus Mariota, guys that were celebrated players coming out of Oregon and just never really got it. This never really happened for him. You look at what's going on with Jaden Daniels, he's hit the ground running. But Caleb Williams has had some struggles, and they got their first win this weekend. So, Smokey, there's no perfect answer. You try to handle them with kid gloves. You try not to put too much on their plate. You hope that there's guys around them that can make plays. And I don't think it's any different than maybe young players that are playing early on in the college ranks. I mean, you look at what's going on at Oklahoma and the quarterback situation there. That was supposed to be the prodigal son, that was coming in as far as a young quarterback. He's really struggled in Jackson Arnold. So you wonder what the perfect recipe is, and I don't think anybody's got that nailed down.
Dave, you called that crazy game the other night. Then you got to turn around and call a Falcons game. What was that 48 hours like?
Well, the scene, certainly the theater, you guys have been to these games and you've seen them. The theater at Bryant-Denny Stadium was off the charts. You know, there's great cathedrals of college football that we all have had opportunities to go see, whether it's in College Station or whether it's in Austin, Texas, or whether it's there in Waco at Baylor, or whether it's at Iowa State and Ames. I mean, these places where these people wait all week long to go and watch their team play, it's just great theater. And then to have an opponent like that come in, like Georgia comes in, won back-to-back national championships in 21 and 22. So just all the pomp and circumstance that centers around that, the pageantry and color of college football. And then you put two football teams on the field that, frankly, I think both of them will be in the playoff, providing Georgia doesn't stumble a couple of times. They've got murderer's row when it comes to their schedule. But I think these two teams are two of the best in the country. And then all of a sudden you get a guy surface in Jalen Milroe who's better than anybody else on the field. Guys, he played at a level and a speed physically that was different than everybody else. And you guys both know that those two teams are littered with NFL players. He was better than anybody else on the field in the game. And then mentally he was faster than anybody else too. It was a sight to see. And then for Kirby Smart's team to be down the way they were and really being run over, to rally like they did, to come out and make some of the adjustments they did, and for Carson Beck to kind of pick himself up by his own bootstraps and get after it, and guys make plays. It was a heavyweight fight. You know, Georgia had a couple standing 8 counts in the first half. It looked like they may go down. They may be out. And then they were able to rally in the middle rounds, if you want to call it a heavyweight fight, and really put Alabama in a position where they got a couple of standing 8 counts. And then the kid wide receiver to make the play at the end the way he did. Just a phenomenal game. I was just happy to be there, let alone be calling the game.
I can't even imagine just the being a part of that. And then when Alabama struck back, did you notice that? I know you got to go, and we've got a guest coming up again around the corner. That when Alabama when they started to lose the momentum, it was as if Georgia said, "Okay, if you're going to throw it, but we're not going to let you, Milroe, turn the corner for 4 yards or 8 yards anytime you want it." It seemed like they just cut that off.
That was the decision they'd made at halftime, Smokey. Good eye on your part. Milroe destroyed them in the first half, and they could not set the edge in the run game, and Milroe was killing them to the perimeter. So they said, you know what? We're going to play coverage. We're going to keep eyes on Milroe. We're not going to let him run the football, and he's going to have to beat us throwing the ball. And you know what? That's what he did. He threw it to that 17-year-old kid, Ryan Williams. He makes a hell of a play on the ball. There's no question about it. The coverage is not bad by the Georgia defender, but the kid was just better. And then once he caught it, we saw the great speed and what he's potentially going to be. He's already being talked about in the annals of great college or great Alabama receivers in the likes of Julio Jones and Jerry Jeudy and Devontae Smith. It's amazing that how good this kid is. Should be still in high school. It's unbelievable.
Yep, absolutely. Dave Archer.
I have one quick question. Dave, I saw on your Twitter feed today that you were friends with the recently deceased and late John Ashton, who's an actor, Beverly Hills Cop, Midnight Run, which is like an amazingly good movie that I don't think enough people now have seen. But I just thought that was an interesting, nice connection that you are friends with Sergeant Taggart.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to meet John many years ago. Stayed at his house a number of times. We played a number of rounds of golf together, and just a quality human being. I mentioned in the tweet, one of the great laughs I've ever heard. I think you probably heard it on some of his movies. But yeah, do yourself a favor if you don't know John Ashton, go watch the movie Midnight Run. He plays opposite Robert De Niro. He obviously plays opposite Eddie Murphy in the Beverly Hills Cop series. But just a quality human being, and lost him. 81 years old, just a good man, and it hurts me to even think about it.
Well, Dave, thanks for sharing that, and Paul for bringing it up. It's great to see you. Member of the Iowa State Athletics Hall of Fame, Iowa State quarterback, and now, again, part of the Falcons broadcast, Compass Radio Network, and just a damn good dude. Dave, thank you very much. It's great to hear your voice, too. We'll talk to you soon.
Pleasure to be on with you guys. You guys keep knocking it out of the park. Great to be with you.
Dave Archer with us, Compass Radio and Falcons broadcast, and played with the Falcons and a lot of teams in the NFL. Pretty good story. A JUCO quarterback undrafted out of college and ended up starting for a couple of years, his second and third year in the league. All right, what was it I said earlier that you giggled about when I was on my way to the room over there?
What do you mean?
I said something to you that you giggled. It was almost.
Oh, why are there no urinals?
Yeah, I got a
At
question.
Holmes?
John McClain's next, and he was at the Astros game with the Tigers. Why don't rich people or even anybody build homes with a toilet, bathroom, all that, but why aren't there urinals built inside of homes?
I'm pretty sure there are in some homes. Yeah.
Really?
I think if you're rich enough to have one, you probably have one.
Yeah.
But
if I was rich enough to do that, and that would be like a done deal, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you're going to have all the other amenities you need, but that was something I brought up. It was random.
Your mind is a fascinating place.
It's not.
Or terrifying, depending on your perspective.
Terrified. John McClain, who was at that Astros Game 1 loss to Detroit. Paul's Top 5. This is 365 Sports. Weekly specials at Waco Custom Marketplace. Brian Bauer, Lisa, and many others. They have a great business. 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. A full-service butcher shop, a full-service bakery, and all of what you need when it comes to tailgating in between. Charcoal, pellet fuel, marinades, seasonings. All of that. And then here are some of the specials they have for this week. For example, chicken tenders. I went in there one time, and I just got a wild hair. I said, I'm going to buy a bag of, they're already cooked. You just got to put them in oil, deep fry them. Chicken tenders. This is a bag of like 50 of them. Chicken tenders for $3.20 a pound. Maple breakfast sausage. That is delicious. $2.59 a pound. Pork steaks at $2.25 a pound. And 10% off all cheeses that are available at Waco Custom Marketplace. They have duck fat spray. And if you want what you need to season your beef, whether it's tri-tip or brisket or wings or anything, at Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. Call ahead, and it's not too early to plug this. Thanksgiving around the corner. Don't forget about smoked turkeys and more. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Hi, I'm Dana Hassel, President and CEO of American Bank. Waco is a great place for business, and for more than 70 years, American Bank has been the bank for business. We continue to invest in our growing community with state-of-the-art branches conveniently located to serve you within minutes. Our experienced bankers, lenders, and decision makers work directly with business owners like you every day, providing tailored solutions, timely answers, and local insights face-to-face. Schedule a meeting with one of our bankers today and find out what makes American Bank the bank for your business. Member FDIC.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
He is to humanity what bacon is to breakfast. He is allowed to use his cell phone on an airplane. He is Cesar Leal of Leal's Mexican Restaurant.
I don't always eat Mexican food, but when I do, I prefer Leal's.
Leal's Mexican Restaurant, 9000 Panther Drive in Woodway, 254-772-8140.
is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Not sure how long this segment's going to last. John McClain is in a bad mood. Astros lost game 1 at home to the Tigers. John was there. John, what was the experience like?
It was depressing. Tarek Skubal, the lefty from the Tigers, best pitcher in baseball, he's going to win the Cy Young Award, and he dominated the Astros. They didn't do squat till the 9th when they scored. Bases loaded, 2 out. Jason Hayward pinch hit. Hard line drive right to the first baseman. Game over. No team that's lost the first game in a wild card has ever won the World Series or has ever even advanced out of the wild card round, and that does not look good for the Astros.
Well, Rangers did that last year. Remember, they went into Tampa and took them out quickly, and it's just this is a short series here, Paul.
That's right. And the same thing that the Rangers, great example, what they did last year. Tampa, and they went on to Baltimore, I believe.
Yep.
And the same thing could be the Tigers. They're hot. And Framber Valdez, who was 0-3 with a 9 ERA last year, gave up 3 runs, couldn't even get out of the fourth, didn't even get to the 5th inning in this one. So disappointing all around. And I'll be back there tomorrow to see if I can help them pull through.
John, I do want to, that line drive that Jason Hayward hit was a screamer. What was the reaction like? Oh my gosh, they did it, and then no, caught.
He hit it so hard you didn't have time to think. But when I saw it hit, I thought they're going to tie it up at least, maybe go down the corner and win the game with the bases loaded double. But then Torkelson caught it. The Tigers got to breathe a huge sigh of relief. I like their manager, A.J. Hinch. Hinch did a great job here. He got fired because of the cheating scandal, went to the Tigers, and he got a really nice ovation at the start of the game from the fans. So if you're going to lose to somebody, I'm glad it's an upstart team like the Tigers and A.J. Hinch.
John, Texans are 3-1, 24-20 over the division rival, I guess, Jacksonville Jaguars, who are now 0-4, which is just not a good place to be at all. But your thoughts on what you saw this past weekend with the Texans winning once again?
The Texans have won. First of all, they're 0-4 against the spread. I haven't looked. Somebody told me they're favored over the Bills. I can't imagine that because I think Buffalo's going to win the game. But they pulled it out. C.J. Stroud played great. 345 yards. They still committed too many penalties. They've had at least 11 3 games in a row. Offensive line's an embarrassment. Can't run block. Can't stay on sides. Can't not commit false starts. And it's amazing they're 3-1 with such poor performance from their offensive line. Defense has played well enough. Now, Buffalo's coming off that humiliation at Baltimore. This is what we call the Stephon Diggs game. Diggs had first rushing touchdown of his career. He was supposed to throw the Philly special, but saw that the Jaguars didn't buy it, and they were covering Stroud. So he did a nifty run for a touchdown. Stroud and Nico Collins still right now are the best, most effective combination in the NFL. Collins has more than 100 yards and the number 2 receiver in yardage. And the Bills, you got to get pressure on Josh Allen. They don't have much of a receiving game without Diggs, and so they have to run the ball, throw the balls to the tight ends and back. So I think Buffalo will win, but I think the Texans would have been better off had the Bills beaten the Ravens and come in here 4-1 instead of embarrassed and seething to bounce back.
I mean, Baltimore beat the hell out of Josh Allen. I'm surprised he survived that game, but he's a big guy. It always makes you nervous because he's so big. He thinks he can run into anything or over anything, and they beat him up. John, was there ever a player in all of your years of covering the Oilers and all the Texans that was ever sideways with you that refused to do an interview with you?
Oh yeah, not with the Texans, but I had some with the Oilers back then, players read the news sports section every day. They brought them over there. They picked them up. They went over and read. Earl Campbell would talk to me for years.
What?
And I had others that went through periods of not talking to me. The only person that did that was Texas was Bill O'Brien, and he didn't talk to me for about 2 months because he was mad when I questioned his clock management, which will drive coaches crazy. And but most of the time that has not happened. And there's a league rule, like if a player doesn't talk, you're required to talk after a game. And if you don't, and the media wants to file a thing through the Pro Football Writers of America with the NFL, NFL send the player letters saying you have to talk or it's going to be a $15,000 fine, and every time you don't. So we don't see that much here.
John, Davante Adams and the Raiders appear headed for a parting of the ways. Where would you say is most likely for him to wind up?
Well, I think the Raiders are just coming off a terrific victory over the Browns. They won in Baltimore. You'd think he'd want to be part of that. But, these wide receivers, a lot of them. That's why I love covering Nico Collins, love covering DeAndre Hopkins and Andre Johnson. They were not selfish. They wanted the ball, but they didn't squawk when they didn't get it. They didn't cause issues behind the scenes. Where Davante Adams has been saying he doesn't want to be traded. Now he does. I would think the Kansas City Chiefs would be the number one team desperate for a wide receiver. And he's going to want his contract redone, restructured so he'll get more money up front. But if you want to make the Chiefs more dangerous, put him there. Aaron Rodgers is telling the Jets, and he runs the Jets, telling the Jets that he wants Davante Adams to be reunited in the Jets. So if I had to pick one, I'd say it'd be the Jets over the Chiefs.
John, how is Mrs. McClain feeling about Jaden Daniels and the Commanders?
Well, like every other Washington football team fan, they're ecstatic. He's off to the greatest start percentage-wise of any quarterback in history, not just a rookie, but any quarterback, period. And I'm really happy for Cliff Kingsbury. I know Cliff a little bit, have for a long time, always a class act. He got run out of Arizona, and I know that winning in Arizona, not just a close game, but pounding them meant a lot to him. And then when Jaden Daniels transferred from Arizona State to LSU, nobody thought anything about it. Nobody thought he was going to be a Heisman contender, and certainly not a contender for the second pick in the draft. And right now, if he stays healthy, runaway winner of the Offensive Rookie of the Year award. He's doing what C.J. Stroud did last year. And right now, the Washington football team is the best team in the NFC East, which has a lot of flaws with the Eagles and the Cowboys, as you guys well know.
Yeah, I just hope that they continue to put bubble wrap around Jaden Daniels. Boy, he's not big, but he's smart. He seemed like he's a hell of a lot smarter in protecting himself than maybe RG3 was early his rookie year when he was just all over the place. But all it takes is just one hit. You never know. But he has been
Lamar
spectacular.
Jackson, excuse me, David.
That's
Lamar
okay.
Jackson has not ever taken a hit like that. And when I see Jaden Daniels run, I think of him. RG3 wanted to run over you, jump over you, and he just wouldn't do what he's supposed to do, and it ended up hurting. It basically ruined his career with Washington. And so I'd love to see people forget he was Rookie of the Year over Andrew Luck. And then the injuries with Mike Shanahan just killed his career. So I think Jaden Daniels, hopefully he learns to slide, and they're telling him because he's going to run a lot because he's a great runner and he's a smart runner.
Did you ever in your career at all interview, I know most of it's been the NFL, all of it, but did you ever interview Pete Rose?
No, Pete Rose is one of my favorite players, and but I never. The closest I came to Pete Rose was when I came to the Chronicle from the Waco Tribune Herald in '76, and Pat Zachary, the greatest baseball player in Waco history, was a rookie with a big red machine, and I went down in the Reds dugout when they were there before the game, and he introduced me to Rose and Johnny Bench and Joe Morgan and those players. And I told Pat, I said, I can't believe. I said, how in the world can you pitch when you're not be starstruck with all these guys? And they loved Pat because they were giving him a hard time. And I'll never forget, Pete told Pat that his dog Bronco, that his wife Carolyn would take care of Bronco one time, and she brought Bronco to the plane to meet Pat in Pete's Rolls, and Bronco took a dump in Pete Rose's car. Pat and Rose both loved telling that story, and so Bronco left a souvenir in Pete's Rolls Royce.
That's great. Greatness. Thank you, Hall of Famer John McClain.
Thank you, guys. Thank them Bears.
John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist with us Tuesdays. He was at that Tigers win against the Astros. And, man, I'm telling you, that's a 3-game series, right? 2 and you're out. So I thought the Astros loaded the bases with maybe 1 out, 3-1. It scored a run. I'm like, okay, here they go again. And they could not bring home the tying or game-winning runs. They couldn't bring home another run. They lost to Tigers. What's the guy's name? Scoble? Scooble. I always pronounce Mr. He's a fantastic pitcher.
Big dude.
Oh, God, he's fantastic. I remember earlier this year against the Rangers, I was like, my Lord. When we come back, 365 Sports, if you haven't yet, hit the like and subscribe button. If you don't mind, 10:30 tonight, 365 Sports tonight on the CW. Paul's Top 5 is next.
For Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Hello, welcome in to Paul Catalina's Top 5, presented by Texas Beef House. Go to bidonbeef.com. Use our promo code 365Sports. There's an auction this week. Top 5 Heisman candidates. We're at the point now where I think there's some separation happening and where I don't think it's too early to start talking about this. So I'm throwing them up on the board. Number 5, Jalen Milroe at Alabama. Now, this is a sliding scale of Heisman candidates. I don't think that he's the 5th most likely. I think since he's the quarterback at Alabama, he's got a better chance than most people on this list when it comes down to it. But I'm giving you my guys who I would put on my ballot if I were to have one. And Heisman Trust, I deserve a ballot. I don't know that's how you get one, but I deserve a ballot. Jalen Milroe at Alabama. You just need to watch how he's been playing this year and how many steps he's taken. Since that benching against USF last year, he has gotten better and better and better and better. And this year, he has been the best version of himself. None more evident than in that epic game this weekend against Georgia. Jalen Milroe, absolutely on my list. Number 4, Nico Amaliava at Tennessee. If Tennessee keeps winning games, and if they win some of the bigger games on their schedule now, They have not quite been challenged yet. Oklahoma was their biggest challenge. When those challenges start to come and we see how Nico plays against them, this will hold more true. But right now, Nico Amaliava is one of the guys I'm putting on my list because he's elevated a team in Tennessee that was good to a team that is really superb and tough to get out. And he's one of those athletes who at any given moment can kind of do whatever he wants to you when the light goes on, and the light's on most of the time with Nico. Number 3, Cam Ward at Miami. This is not surprising to me. You put him in a system that has this many playmakers and all the options and weapons that he has and the stage that's what he deserves. He has been nothing short of spectacular. He brought them back in the game against Virginia Tech the other night, made a ridiculous play, a chest pass that's kind of a Heisman moment play. Cam Ward, and he's flipped the ACC. This is the dude that flipped the ACC. Make no mistake. When the ACC championship is decided this year, it's going to be around this guy, one way or the other, because he's the one who flipped it to Miami. Number 2, Ashton Jeanty at Boise State. If you have not watched Ashton Jeanty play, I suggest you do. And I will only describe me watching Ashton Jeanty highlights with the expressions I make right now when I'm watching it. Oh my God. Are you serious? You got to be kidding me. He's played 4 games so far this year. He has 845 yards rushing. He's a great receiver out of the backfield. He can return kicks. There is nothing this guy can't do. I'm told that he has a wonderful recipe for lasagna. Unbelievable stuff that this guy can do. Unreal. Ashton Jeanty needs to be in New York if this keeps up. He is going to threaten Barry Sanders' record if this keeps up for a single season rushing totals. Unbelievable what this kid is doing. And number 1, and I do mean this number 1, this is the only true ranking. Travis Hunter at Colorado is unlike anything that I've seen in my lifetime. Every other two-way player was a gimmick on one way or the other. He's not a gimmick. There's no gimmick about him. He's a legit two-way player. He does amazing things. Heck, they're showing highlights of him running down and almost making a tackle to show how athletic he is, like they did last week on one of UCF's rare good plays. He is something like we've never seen. And let's stop the hate and appreciate. Oh, I crack myself up. But let's start appreciating what we're seeing. I think we as a collective sports fan base need to enjoy the eras that we're in. So if you don't like the Dodgers, I get it. But Shohei Ohtani's doing amazing things. We're getting to see our Babe Ruth. You don't like Colorado, you don't like Deion Sanders, fine. This guy's unbelievable. Sit back and enjoy it as a football fan. Believe me, it feels good. It feels good to enjoy things. But if you just want to be negative, then be negative. But I'm telling you, you're missing out on watching one of the best players we're ever going to see in college football, in Travis Hunter. That's going to do it for us. Smokey, wrap up the show, sir.
Thank you very much, Paul. People asking about where was so-and-so who was 6th, and you said watch tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we do that every day, Monday through Friday, 3 until 6, right here at Central Time, 365 Sports. And then, of course, 1 to 2, the triple option. And I will tomorrow morning record our next week of our high school football podcast that usually airs live on the football high school channel, whatever they call it, on Thursdays around 10 o'clock. So all of that, always something going on left and also right. Thank you to all of our guests. Congrats to UTEP. Good for you. Thanks to John Teicher for being a part of the show. For Garrett Ross and Jack McKenzie, Levi Caraway, he called me earlier today. I forgot to call him back. Just realized that. And Emery Winter, who's already editing 365 Sports tonight at 10:30 on the CW. For Craig and Paul, for you, thank you. Our great sponsors, thank them every day. I'm David Smoak. Good night.